Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you all here. We are just going to give people about 2 minutes to enter the room, and we will start at 10:05. So thank you all for your patience, and we look forward to welcoming you at 10:05 and starting the webinar. Good morning, everybody. My name is Keshni Mati, and I am a director with the ASCHP and a specialist wellness counselor. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome all 388 and counting of you to the annual 2025 ASCHP webinar. So this webinar is titled Rebuilding with Purpose, Growing Your Wellness Practice Ethically and Strategically with the ASCHP. And we are so excited to have you see all of our speakers and learn from their wisdom. But before we start that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Liesl Herhold to you all. She's a true visionary in the field of counseling and of wellness and holistic wellness. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction. Dr. Liesl, welcome. So Dr. Herhold serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the ASCHP. As we know, it's the Association for Supportive Counselors and Holistic Practitioners. And this has become an organization that has advocated for the recognition of wellness and holistic counselors across South Africa and globally. With a PhD in counseling and decades of dedication to the helping professions, Dr. Liesl Herhold has been instrumental in raising the standards of ethical practice, professional development, and holistic well-being in our sector. She is deeply passionate about empowering counselors, not only to serve with integrity and compassion, but also to take their rightful place as essential contributors to mental health and community well-being. Please, everyone, join me in welcoming Dr. Liesl Herhold, a leader, advocate, and inspiration to all of us who believe in the power of care, connection, and human growth. Thank you, Dr. Liesl. Over to you.
Thank you, Keshni, and thank you all our wonderful members attending this webinar today. It is really with great pleasure that we welcome each and everybody to this professional development webinar. Your attendance today is a testament to your dedication, your passion, and your sense of responsibility towards your clients and the counseling profession. By being here, you affirm your commitment to personal growth and to maintaining the highest ethical and professional standards. We also extend our heartfelt appreciation and warm welcome to our distinguished presenters who have graciously given of their time and expertise to share valuable insight with us. Each presentation promises to offer fresh perspectives, practical guidance, and thought-provoking ideas that will strengthen our practice and broaden our understanding. As we step into a new era of transformation and progress within the counseling field, let us embrace change, not with apprehension, but with confidence and hope. Together, we will use these developments to our advantage, enhancing the quality of care we provide and the influence we exert within our communities. We encourage all counsellors present today to listen attentively, engage actively, and absorb as much as possible from the sessions ahead. May this webinar be a source of inspiration, learning, and renewed purpose for all of us. Enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liesel. Greatly appreciate your words of wisdom and encouragement. So before we begin, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown of how today's session is going to work. So we have 5 speakers, and I'm just going to go through the agenda for you. So we have our first topic, which is authentic marketing for wellness counselors, reaching clients without compromising ethics. And then it is followed by from solo counselor to sustainable business practice. And these are models that actually will work and help you expand or build your practice. We then have a session on pricing with integrity, balancing accessibility and professional worth. And then we're going to have a short brain break just so that everyone has a chance to be able to eat and refresh before they come back and we speak about supervision as well as ethical practice. So we will make sure that your comments and your questions are being supported via our team. So please feel free, like Dr. Liesel said, to engage, to ask your questions. And if the presenters are not able to answer them at the end of their sessions or at the end of the day with the topic that we have for question and answers, we will then have them answer your questions and we'll be able to give you feedback as a whole on what those answers are from their wisdom. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our very first presenter. I am going to be reading your bio, Shireen, because it is it is quite a beautiful one. So here we go. So Shireen Hunter, she's the founder and brand strategy specialist at African Brand Architects. Shireen Hunter is the founder of African Brand Architects, a boutique agency dedicated to building authentic, purpose-led brands across Africa and internationally. With extensive experience in brand strategy, marketing, and communications, she's passionate about helping organizations tell their stories with integrity and impact. Shireen champions ethical marketing, guiding businesses to align their values with their messaging while fostering trust with their audiences. As a thought leader, and I know you are, and a mentor, a great one, she believes responsible communication is essential for sustainable brand success. Thank you so much, Shireen. Over to you.
So much, Stephanie, and good morning to everybody that's joined this webinar. This is by far one of the biggest webinars that I've been on in a long time, post being in lockdown. So well done to your members for attending. This morning's webinar hopefully will bring you some energy, and it's not going to be too boring. It's now just gone 10 past 10. I will be as precise as I can with the timekeeping. But my intention is really just to hold a conversation with you that is quite an important one. Obviously, I'm a professional person myself, and I'm deeply passionate about teaching people to make the connection between your ethics and your brand or your business identity, especially in the profession that you are in, which is to help people. I think I want to open before I even start sharing my presentation and say that as counselor, your brand is not just your logo or your tagline. It is a living, breathing manifestation and representation of your values, your integrity, and your level of professionalism. So every word that you share or write or publish, every designation you display, it communicates who you are, not just to the public, but also within your own professional community. And this is why it's such an important topic. Although nothing that I'm going to share with you this morning is rocket science, I think what is important is that you keep it top of the mind as you do your day-to-day business within your profession. I'm going to start with my presentation formally. As Keshni introduced me, my name is Serene Unter, and I started an agency called African Brand Architects. We've been around in business, probably trading under different names pre-lockdown for about 15 years. And prior to that, I was also in the marketing space. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some really good advice today and be able to answer your questions a little bit later on. Let's deep dive in. What is integrity and ethics? And I think it really boils down to one thing, and that is communication. Your words are the voice of your heart's intent, and when they align with what is true, they become your act of ethics. That's a quote, and I wish I knew whose quote it was, but unfortunately that wasn't available. But I thought, it's the clearest definition of brand management, communication, and alignment with ethics. So why is it important for you as a counselor? So obviously, as a counselor, your brand is just not the logo or tagline. As I said, it's a representation of your values, your integrity and professionalism. And we count our words before we write and we speak. And there's very specific reasons for that, because it can land you in a lot of hot water, the wrong choice of words. So what do I mean by that? Common branding pitfalls amongst practitioners, and obviously pitfalls being the hidden or the unexpected danger or difficulties or problems that can be caused when things go wrong. And things go wrong most of the time. My experience is when you least expect it, and it's normally quite unintentional. So you slide into a trap without even realizing. And this comes with serious consequences as professional practitioners, because it can have serious consequences. So unintentionally, the consequences can be very unforgiving. I don't know if there are people in the room who have faced consequences unintentionally, but it can end up in litigation, being sued, in conflict. And these are things that largely can be avoided if we carry a higher consciousness about the words that we use around our business and the information that we publish about the business. So I'm going to tackle a few of them. One or two of them I will labor on more than others. But the starting point is possibly, let's talk about the misrepresentation of designation or your title. This is a very sensitive issue in professional space, but using the incorrect title, such as calling yourself a registered counsellor instead of a designated counsellor, or describing the work that you do as a therapy rather than a wellness intervention. This is what we would consider, from an ethics point of view, misleading clients. And the consequence of that is definitely the compromise of credibility. It is important, and even subtle wording choices can create a false impression and then lead to what becomes ethical breaches. So I think post this conversation this morning, what I would love to encourage everybody to do is go back to all your published work online and have a look at your hard copy print, and just go do a little bit of your own proofreading to make sure the words that you've used for yourself and for your teams with regards to designations, that they are accurate, they are up to date, and that you are using the right descriptions, so that you don't run into what is really unnecessary issues around credibility, or possibly being accused by clients or by your peers of misleading your clients. Then I'm going to touch on something and maybe labor a little bit more on this point, but I do because it is actually so pertinent today in the world of social media, where everybody who has a Facebook page actually is a journalist. And that is the topic of online slander and professional rivalry. So social media has really become a double-edged sword. And although it is a tool for visibility and we want to use it very responsibly, where we see the problem is in cross-slandering, gossip, or screenshot sharing between practitioners. I want to say it is highly unethical to do screenshot sharing in what would be deemed a confidential conversation. And we see more and more of it going around. And maybe a lot of people get away with it, but it is actually quite unethical from a professional standpoint. Your brand is really only as strong as your personal and business reputation. And so protecting that means never engaging in public criticism or gossip. And this is a contentious issue, and I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to spend a bit of time this morning unpacking why it's so contentious or why it may be controversial. I have just, for the purposes of this presentation, and I've put it into, I've shared this presentation with Kirsty, the difference between libel and slander. Really, libel being that which is in writing, which is defaming somebody else, and then slander, which is the oral spoken word, which is your words used to break down somebody's reputation or to damage their reputation. Both which can have legal consequences for you in your profession. So the resistance to this and the scapegoat that people often use is, well, I have freedom of speech, and that is true. But I think what is important to know is freedom of speech is not absolute, and I've underlined that specifically. So yes, you do have the right to express your thoughts and opinions and beliefs, even if others disagree with them. That is a cornerstone of our democracy, but that doesn't mean that you can say exactly how you feel and publish it on social media. And I think especially now, post what's been happening in the US, there are huge sensitivities around hate speech, the incitement of violence, defamation, whether it is oral or in writing, or speech that violates somebody else's privacy. This is very important. Or spreads false information, even if it is inferring something about someone else. And so while you do have the freedom to speak and to write, with that freedom definitely comes a huge amount of responsibility. So please, I'd like to just encourage you to do so respectfully and definitely truthfully. Can you have an opinion online? I mean, I also don't want you to feel like it's all red tape and you're in a box. You certainly do have the right to have an opinion and possibly even publish that opinion. But I just wanted to give you a very basic example of what is opinion-based and a factual claim. When you're talking I, and I've highlighted the yellow in I because you are the subject. So if you say, I didn't enjoy the food or I don't like something, I think it's a very safe space when it's your opinion, and using the word I definitely ring fences the risk around that. But when you're talking about something or someone and it crosses a line which almost infers a factual claim, I think we definitely then are in deep water. Sorry, I've just had a pop-up on my screen, so I just wanted, not sure where it comes from, but it's not for me. So if the statement isn't true, it's no longer an opinion, and it can be potentially defamatory. And I think that's what you have to be careful of with regards to publishing. So rather start your sentences with I feel, or I didn't enjoy, or I don't like, and it is clearly about your opinion, and be very careful not to talk about someone else or something else as though it is a matter of fact. So when we talk about slander, it's really about a false spoken statement that damages another person's reputation. And I want to say to you what I always say to people. I say to my clients, and I've dealt with very difficult issues around this up to points of litigation as an advisor, is I always say, remember when you're writing about another business or another person, their family are reading that content. I think sometimes we get tunnel vision when we write about a certain topic or even about a certain person, completely oblivious to the fact that their children are reading what you are writing, Their families are reading what you are writing, and possibly even the employees are reading what you're writing. And that can be really damaging, not only to the person or the business that you're talking about, but to everybody who's associated with that. So to really tread cautiously around that. As far as gossip goes, the spreading of lies through a podcast, video, and public conversation. And for this, I want to say you have to be very careful, especially in a professional environment where the public don't often question the weight of the truth of a statement. So if the public look up to somebody as a professional and they are regarded that way, they normally will take what that person says as the truth, and they don't really discern between what is truth and what is an opinion. And I think there's a much greater responsibility on all of us as professionals to make sure that we're very clear when we're doing our podcast, when we're creating video content, or having any kind of public conversation, that we always bring it back to what I think. And even if we're talking about a situation that we have part of the facts for, if we don't have the full facts, that we have to be very careful how we position our views around that topic specifically. So I've given you a basic example of there. I'm not going to labor on that point anymore. And then obviously libel, similar to slander, but written or published. And like I say, we've seen that all over social media. But what I also want to say, and possibly to protect you as a professional, even in newspaper articles, you have to be quite careful. But I also want to say that if for whatever reason you are ever mentioned on in the media, be it above the line or below the line, above the line, which is really your breaking news channels, television, radio, newspaper, above the line, below the line, largely social media, community newspapers. If you ever find your name mentioned in those articles, you do have in our country right of reply, and I always would advise people to respond or to hold the media accountable for what they write about you or they write about your business. And actually, they're not allowed to publish without giving you rights of reply. So if you find an opportunistic media personality or journalist who writes a story around you or something that is possibly damaging to your reputation or to your credibility, you can address that in a formal manner, and I would strongly recommend that you do, because as I say, the public will often take what they read in the news as the truth. I think there's also a responsibility on us as professionals if we see the wrong information passing through the media, that we, and this, it's not for any reward, but just from a public responsibility point of view, that we try and correct information. If you see another professional sharing wrong information, wrong statistics, or through a media agency publishing wrong information, please take the time to address that with the media or with the professional in the most courteous possible way, so that we actually educate the client, the public, and communities responsibly. Then I'll touch on something which is reasonably sensitive, I think not for ASCHP, but even for your own business, is misuse of a logo, any kind of logo. There is a responsibility on you before publishing, even though you may not be a media person. Please make note, it is your responsibility to make sure that you only publish what is approved by whichever organization you are aligning yourself with, and that you're using the latest version. I see this happening a lot because I do a lot of events and I do a lot of work across brands where somebody's doing a PowerPoint presentation or they are doing their own website and they are aligned with an organization, and that is vetted and that's perfect. But they have the wrong logo or the wrong version of the logo published in their work because they haven't been diligent in the detail, going back to the organization that they're aligned with to say, is this the correct logo? Most companies will have brand guidelines in terms of how their logo is presented and the correct colors that you use when publishing. It may be knowledge to some, but not common knowledge to all, that the colors print differently on hard copy as they would on digital, and often there's a little bit of editing that is required so that you get used to, so that you use the right color when you're working with someone else's logo. I think also from your point of view, you want to make sure that with any organization you are aligning with, that if you refresh or rework your logo, that you remember where your logo is published and that you reach out and update your logo with the various stakeholders that you work with. Because this I see all the time, wrong logos, wrong colors. And then also what is important, and this might not be so obvious for everybody, is that you must use the logo, especially for ASCHP, in the context of what you are publishing. So the example is, if you are both a counselor and a trainer, the logo may only appear under your counseling services, because that's really where the membership is, not under an unrelated offering that may be on your page, like workshops or massage therapy. So please, I want to encourage you once again, go back to your website, go back to your printed material, and please make the necessary adjustments to your marketing collateral so that you publish things correctly and you don't feel like you're under the whip or you have a police behind you from ASCHP saying, please take the logo down or please change the logo. Rather, exercise that level of due diligence proactively so that we don't have to run into those kinds of challenges. Then another thing you need to be aware of is expired or incorrect designation. So you know that there's a point system that you need to keep up to date with your own training and your education, but you cannot continue to advertise if you have an expired designation. It is unethical and obviously it erodes trust. So very important, please go back, go look at your profile, go look at your qualifications, make sure that it is current. And if there's any doubt whatsoever, I know that through the Office of ASCHP, they will help you to make sure that your information is correct. Just in a nutshell, best branding practices for counsellors, and I'm not going to read through all of this, but it really is about being authentic, being accurate, very important, the devil is in the detail, be accurate, always be respectful, be consistent, and be clear. So avoid those exaggerated claims and instead focus on the values of your respective practice and make sure they are meaningful and that they are distinctive. The power of ethical visibility, obviously, keep in mind, please, brands are not built overnight, but strong brands do grow very quickly, especially when there's alignment in terms of integrity, empathy, and clarity. So the ethical branding guidelines, they're really not put in place to limit you in any way whatsoever. In fact, what we want to help you to do is amplify your influence and help your clients and your peers build a better level of trust with you. So think of your brand within the context of an ecosystem. You're not an island. You're not operating on your own. Your brand affects other brands just as their brands affect you. And I think that is a webinar all on its own, is who you align with, because these have real consequences for your business. But remember that every single post, every comment, and every collaboration will either nurture or harm your business or brand environment. And I think that brings me almost to the end of my presentation. I think I'm doing well for time. What I would like to say to the members of ASCHP is that I have offered to do a follow-up webinar where we could possibly go into your personal brand challenges and answer maybe in more depth questions from today's session. So I'll make that available to you. I've also said that you're welcome to reach out to me. I'm going to give a certain number of hours pro bono back to ASCHP. So if you do have a question, you're more than welcome to email me. My email address is at the bottom of the screen, or you can WhatsApp text me directly and I will respond to you within a reasonable amount of time and assist you as much as possible. And obviously stay in communication with your office at ASCHP. And if we have frequently asked questions or we can see an emerging trend with regards to training as it relates to marketing collateral and the boundaries around that and the responsibilities around that, we certainly can do another webinar. And so in closing, what I would like to say to you is please remember in your day-to-day business Your brand, your business is your promise to the community. And when we get your words and actions to align with your purpose, you create a brand that will not only attract the most amazing clients, but surely will inspire the trust within the entire profession. So I think that is everything from my side. I'd like to thank you, Joshua, for entrusting me to speak to your community, and Keshni, and I make myself available now for anybody who would like to ask a question that relates to this content.
Thank you so much, Shireen, and thank you for offering your wisdom to all of us. I'm not sure, Josh, do we have any questions? Yes, there we go. A hand is up, Shireen. You are muted.
I'm not muted.
Oh, no. Josh and the team are muted. I'm just wondering if they didn't have a question.
If there are any questions, the participants can just raise their hands and I'll allow them to speak.
Perfect.
There is a question from Mandy Haynes, Keshni. It says, can you use the word counselling services? Would you like to lean in there?
Oh, I see them all popping up now. Josh, would you like me to answer that? Or would Dr. Lisa like to answer that? Can we use the phrase counseling services?
Yes, yes, we may. Definitely not the word therapy, obviously, as we stated, but that would be a safe option.
I think, Christelle, I've allowed you to speak.
Christelle, you can go ahead with your question.
Christelle is on mute.
Okay, while we're waiting. Oh, Christelle, can you hear us? Would you like to ask your question? Josh, we can't hear Christelle. Shall we try Sandra? Sandra, would you like to ask your question? Can you hear Shireen? No?
No, I can't hear.
Josh, I'm wondering if you could just maybe get the questions from Sandra, Christelle, maybe Hester. Hester, can we see if we can hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Would you like to ask your question?
100%. Yes, thank you so much for this webinar.
Oh, we've lost Hester. There you go. Hester, you're back?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just have a question. So I am registered with the ASCHP, all right? But I also have a dual accreditation as a sex therapist. So what happens in regards to that, having dual accreditation?
I can, Keshni, it's Dr. Liesel here. I can quickly answer there, Hester.
Yes, please.
Whenever you advertise yourself, you will use your designation and you may indicate your area of specialization, which will obviously, in your case, be sexuology.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Some great questions coming through. I think we have time for one more question. Shazal, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Please do correct me if I'm wrong. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and you, Shazal?
Fine, thanks. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Welcome.
Okay, I just wanted to find out something. Recently I've been thinking of opening up my own business. So I wanted to find out, is it is it fine if we name it like Dubri's Counseling Inc., because it's going to be an incorporation business? Will that be an appropriate name?
Dr. Liesel, did you want to answer?
Keshni, you can take that one.
Okay, and Shireen, maybe you can add value here as well. Do you want to go first with the ink?
Yes, I can speak to that. I think you really have to publish the way you are registered with SIPC. So if you're registered as a P2R Limited, then you put P2R Limited. If you are registered as an NPC, you have to, you publish NPC. And if you register yourself as an Inc., then that's how you publish yourself. But you can't just tag it onto the end of your company name unless it is exactly how you are registered with SIPC. I think your SIPC registration will lead you in terms of how you publish your business.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shazal, for your question. Okay, Shireen, thank you so much for your wisdom. And I'm sure that all of the counselors have benefited greatly from what you had to say. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. I think I'm on next to introduce our next topic and also the speaker. The topic being from solo counselor to sustainable practice business models that work. And Keshni Marthi will be the presenter. Keshni, also, if you don't mind, I'm going to read because you've been busy all your life and I don't want to miss anything. And we're eager to listen to your presentation. Keshni Marthi is a designated specialist wellness counselor from the ASCHP. Further on, you will also learn that she's one of our directors. She's a coach, trainer, and researcher. Keshni is, as I said, the director of the ASCHP and the founder and managing director of the Wellness Specialist, a training and consulting company dedicated to enabling future change leaders. With a background as a wellness counselor, ADHD coach, and learning and development manager across multiple industries, she specializes in transforming practitioners into thriving business owners and equipping organizations with sustainable wellness and leadership strategies. Keshni is also an international recognized and accredited trainer, researcher, and advocate for mental health and workplace well-being. She also is a research committee member at the Workplace Wellness Association of South Africa. Currently pursuing her professional doctorate, her research explores the intersection of education, neurodiversity, and workplace wellness, with a focus on empowering educators and parents to better support children with ADHD-like symptoms. Keshni, that is a mouthful. Thank you for your time and your willingness, and we are eager to listen to what you have to teach us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liesel, for that warm introduction. And thank you all for being here. I see there are over 400 of you, and I'm excited to share with you. There will be no gatekeeping. I'm going to try and give you all the information that I've gathered, and not just the theoretical side of how to go from solo counselor to sustainable practice, but also how I've built my business. And I did start in the training field and as a wellness counselor until I got my master's degree, and then I got my specialist wellness counselor designation. So it is possible for you to evolve. It is possible for you to expand. It is possible for you to move through these levels. So we're going to start out, because I like storytelling, so we're going to start out with a bit of a story. And that story is the story of two business models. Does anyone know what this brand is? I cannot see you, but this is Nokia. And pre-2017, Nokia was known as the king of cell phones. It was absolutely the brand to have. We all had Snake on our phones. And it was a phone that was really, really sought after. What if I told you that money wasn't an option and you could either have the number one, Nokia, or you could have this brand? So, which brand would you choose if money wasn't an option? That is the first question. The second question would be, what if I told you that these two brand new phones and devices on the market are actually very similar in what they offer? Would you still choose your first choice? So we know that Nokia was demanding full marketing, branding. It was taking over the industry as a whole. And then the newcomer, iPhone, popped in, and they did a few things that were different. So we can learn about business models using these analogies, and we can learn from both Nokia's journey as well as iPhone's journey and Apple's journey in the evolution of counseling and wellness counseling specifically as we know it. So what happened to Nokia's popularity? How did it go from the most popular kid on the block to not? When we look at the key reasons for Nokia's decline, we can see a couple of things that come up, and I'm just going to close this poll. The first thing that we notice, oopsie. The first thing that we notice is that Nokia was very slow to recognize the importance of the shifts, okay? And they missed the crucial movement from the hardware, which we understand as the service, to the software-driven devices. And that is how people are engaging with our service. We also see that as we move forward, I'm having some issues here, is that they had declined because of complacency and overconfidence. So they believed that they were dominating the market, and therefore they felt that they would always be able to offer the same products in the same way, at the same, marketing plan, etc., etc. And this actually hindered its ability to innovate, and it hindered their ability to collaborate with those around them. One of the main indicators of Nokia's issues was that they failed to adapt. So they failed to move from what they knew, which was Symbian, which is their operating system, to iOS and to Android. So they didn't do that for a number of reasons, but they were so convinced that what they were offering was going to be relevant and prevalent that they didn't listen to what their people were saying. They also missed the software opportunity and the user experience. And this is something that Apple and other competitors, namely Samsung, has done really well from 2017. It's to look at what we call in the digital space as UX, the user experience. And in our world, we know that as the client journey. So never mind what I'm offering, how does the client experience that from the very first time I speak to them, from my very first intake form, from how I'm following up with them in between that session? And are they viewing it as a hard sell, or are they viewing it as an open door into what I'm doing? Another thing that happened to Nokia was the late era negative marketing. And I won't go into this because Shireen has mentioned it. But what they did was that they panicked, and they started using more negative and critical marketing. Now, we can see that in wellness counseling, because the question then would be, are you positioning the deficit or are you positioning the strength outcome? So are you using wording like, are you feeling low energy and depressed, as opposed to, would you like to feel invigorated and more well in your lifestyle, right? So they used a lot of that kind of late era negative marketing. Inconsistent marketing strategy. So Nokia's downfall was an unclear message. They failed to attract the right clients because they aimed it at everybody, as opposed to looking at their unique market and seeing, how am I able to serve my market better? Okay, and this is what we call niching down or niching up. So just to put it all together, Nokia missed the opportunity to adapt and change and upgrade. And also, they missed the opportunity to be inspired by the competition. There is no competition, only collaboration. And even though you might meet competitive people, you can still align with the right people doing the exact same things to be able to add more awareness to the environment. And awareness means more people know, so more people come. So don't be afraid of being inspired by others who do the same thing with you. Now, we're going to take you through a journey today, and none of these are the right business model. So you can be at any one of them in this journey, and we all start at 1.0. So we all start at that version. After that version, we need an upgrade, much like a smartphone. And many of us ignore the upgrade. We're like, I don't have time for it. It's going to take too long. But we actually, when we do upgrade, we then move into 2.0. And this is the counselor entrepreneur business model. We then need to upgrade again, that uncomfortable, restless feeling, things are not working, things are not going well anymore. And that is called the counselor integrator. And then the creme de la creme for now is 4.0, which is the counselor human ecosystem architect. And yes, absolutely, you can be a counselor human ecosystem architect. So I'm just going to close this poll. There we go. So we start out with counselor 1.0, the helper. This is where we all begin. We want to help people. That's why we called to this. We know that people need assistance. We know that people want to be supported. And being a counselor is not easy. It is glorified. It is not easy. It is difficult to show up every day. And it is difficult not because we don't love our clients, but because we know healing is not linear. Their healing and our part in it is definitely not going to be a straight line. But neither is business, everyone. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. There's going to be moments where you think, I can't anymore. Is this the right thing for me to do? But on the other side of fear is success. And many people do not walk through that fear boundary and they stop before, right? So what does the Counselor 1.0 look like? This is very much the Nokia model. So this stage shows the basic trading time for money model, and it's based on sessional services. So when we look at the analogy and we compare it to Nokia, well, then that's a counselor who will provide the one-on-one wellness guidance, is extremely consistent in what they do. They rely on, regular marketing every now and then, ad hoc. There's no real marketing strategy. And the model is reliable, but it doesn't serve the counselor for scalability. So while you are serving one-to-one, you are not able to have greater impact with more people, and therefore your scalability for your business is really reduced. What does that typical offering look like? Well, it looks like a single 60-minute session, and you have a general life challenges. So you're marketing to everyone. You're looking at stress as a whole big thing. You're not breaking it down, or you're looking at lifestyle as a whole big thing. And it's offered as an accessible price point. And the objective of the Counselor 1.0 is to grow the database. So the counselor is saying, the more people that I get in, the more sustainable my business is. Is there a high ticket item here? Yes. A lot of counselors will say, well, I can have a couples counseling or a family package, and that can include 90-minute sessions and maybe just a generic wellness plan, and then I'll do 60-minute follow-up sessions, okay? Which is fine when you're starting out. It's not a challenge at all, but it can become super frustrating. And the way that we upgrade to move now into 2.0 is really a shift of our own mindset. If you are offering on 1.0 your clients just sessions in general, you want to start thinking about, with all these clients that I have, is there a specific pain point that I can be super effective in based on my lived experience? So what is that single repeatable pain point? What is my ideal client? And a lot of counselors get scared and they say, I don't want to choose an ideal client because it will limit me. But actually, if you do have at least pain points, 3, 4, 5 of them that you know you solve best, that is a pain point that you can then utilize. How can you utilize this? Well, as you are evolving, you might want to create a digital branded workbook. And please, if you haven't already downloaded Canva, please do. Please download Canva. You can even use the free version of Canva. But the whole point and magic of Canva is that you use it as a template. And then you go in and you customize it. The way that you would want to customize it is a number, a short number, so 5 or 4 or 3 guided exercises for that big topic like stress management. And then you can then offer this tangible product as an introduction to potential clients so that they can share that. And they are more likely to use it and they're more likely to talk about it, which will increase your word of mouth. Of course, you can package that low ticket item or low cost accessible item with an immersive multi-session package. And we're moving here from one-to-one to more programs. So this is one-on-one sessions, and you're going to offer them a premium toolkit. And when we say premium, no, you don't have to overcharge your client, not at all, but it's the value that you put into that toolkit. Again, Google Docs is a beautiful way. Google Drive, which is easily accessible from every single Gmail account, will afford you the opportunity to create a folder that you can add one client to or a family to. It's super secure and you can continue to support them in that way. Now you are supporting them through their user experience. It almost becomes support in my pocket kind of methodology because they can go in, refer or request something for you that you can quickly add in. And once you create something, you always have it for all the other clients that are to come. A shift in thinking is necessary. Welcome to Counselor 2.0. So this is the counselor entrepreneur. It's the next step in the journey. And what we look here is we look at how Apple managed to infiltrate Nokia. How on earth did such an established brand give way for Apple? Well, Apple created a flagship unique identifier. And it diversified its offer. It made things smaller, it made things sleeker, it made things easier to handle and manage. So this is where the counselor is going to elevate that client experience. It's going to expand the offerings beyond the single session. It's where your brand becomes an experience and it becomes trusted because you are able to actually connect with that person at a heart point, not just one of many people that you serve. Here you have structured sessions. What to expect in the session is something that you can send your clients. What will those packages look like in my journey with you as a counselor, Keshni, if I'm doing a 4-session package and I want to handle stress as a parent? Do we have a marketing strategy that makes sense? So, for example, this month is ADHD Awareness Month, and it's also Mental Health Month. So, a marketing strategy speaking to those things, not in a deficit way, but in an awareness way and in a positive, strength-based way, really does go a long way for those clients. Also, Counselor 2.0 has boundaries. So the clients always know when they are accessible, when they're not accessible. And this allows for sustainability because your clients will really appreciate the boundaries more than just not having you reply when they're used to you replying at 8 p.m. at night, which takes your time and your energy from your family. The counselor also sees themselves as a business owner, okay? And this is important. Once you register that company with CIPC, you are a business owner. You are a director of your company. You are not your company, and your company is not you. It is its own entity. And therefore, it's okay for you to stop services. It's okay for you to change direction. We are not so attached to it that we can't use data to be able to give our clients what they need. Now, as a researcher, I am so excited about data, but I hope that you will be too as we move forward. And yes, we will always be driven by empathy and by the need to really serve. But the information that you get with what services to offer, these kinds of data will really help you with that. So let's have a look and see. So I've put down exactly where I've got these references from, so you can go have a look. 2024 ProfMed Graduate Professions Wellness Index. So this was a survey that was done in 2024. And what it looks at is it looks at stress indexes, okay? And it says, okay, how often does work stress interfere with your personal life? And you can see that over 36, in fact, over 60%, if you look at occasionally, regularly, frequently, and constantly added up, of people that were actually polled say that work stress definitely interferes with their personal life. And this is important. That means that they're taking all of this home, right? So you can also see that if you seek mental health support, which method do you prefer? And I know this is small, so I will share my slides. But it says that in-person meetings, and it's on a rise now, it's over 60%. Telephonic, 4.3, online, 12.19, and text-based support is actually higher than online and telephone, which is 23%. Okay, this is pivotal for us to know what our clientele needs so that we can offer them what is within their comfort zone. In order to position this, you need a service and a signature offering. And a great way for you to do this and just fine tune who you're going to help, what you're going to help them with, and how is to say, I help, add in the who, doing what, and how. I've given you some examples here. I help new and expected parents navigate the emotional challenges of parenthood by providing emotional support and coping tools to manage anxiety and find balance. This becomes your 5-minute elevator pitch, your discovery call, the thing that you use when you are forming connections with referrals and collaborators. Another one, I help clients achieve holistic well-being by integrating physical, emotion, and spiritual aspects of health into a comprehensive care plan. This says I'm not there just there for the moment, I'm there for a long time. And if you see what it says, stress interfering with personal life, a once-off session is not going to help that person. They're going to need a journey of support and a comprehensive, transparent, very nicely articulated and set out care plan for their wellness journey. Another finding from that same stress index is what is stressing you the most? And this is a question that we always get. So we can see here that it's actually financial concerns, which might not be a shock to you, but financial concerns has deep spiritual implications, right? It impacts us on a deeper level than just being able to get over it. So economic uncertainty, rising living costs, these are things that we need to tap into. These are the needs of our clients. Next is work-related pressure. And again, you don't need to be in corporate to help people with work-related pressure. You can just have a service offering that incorporates this. Environmental challenges, personal health and wellness. Okay, so this is what it is telling us. The last example that I'm going to give you is by Life Wellness by WellHub. So please go and have a look. The source is down below, wellhub.com. And they looked at work stress, and they looked and saw that it is the leading cause of mental dis-ease. Okay. And when we look at it, we can see it's 47% of the 5,000 employees in 9 countries that it surveyed, followed very closely by quality of sleep, inflation, lack of exercise, poor nutrition, health issues, isolation, and so it happens. And so it goes down. In fact, 9% of these people said that they have anxiety due to AI. Not virtual, but AI, the onset of AI itself. This gives us great information of how we can tweak our services in 2.0. Moving on to 3.0, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Here we're looking at the counselor as an integrator. That means you're pulling together things together. So often we have this here and this here and this here. Now we have identified who our clients are and what we offer. In 2.0, we have this framework, and now we want to pull it together into a methodology. So you can see that the integrator doesn't just look at the situation. It also sees the person as a whole. It sees them as fully capable, able to reflect, learn, and adapt. We see that they crave purposeful engagement. And we also see that systems work very well to be able to give people the psychological safety that they need, right? So the integrator is a systems approach to counseling with collaborations, referral chains, recommendation chains with other practitioners. And to Shireen's point, everybody has a role to play. Every practitioner has a role to play in the client's journey if the client feels that they need that, okay? So different scope for different folks, right? And we don't have to do it all as one person. So here we're going from offering this 1.0 to helping clients overcome a specific pain point to a systems approach to care. So your upgrade tip here is busyness does not equal business. So being busy all the time doesn't mean that you're going to be bringing in any revenue, bringing in any client, getting any job satisfaction. In fact, sometimes busyness can be a distraction and can be a way that we procrastinate in order to make the change that we might need to evolve into the next space. So ask yourself this question: how would I describe my services if it was packaged into a framework? And you are already doing it. I can assure you, when you see a client and they come to you for healthy relationships, you are talking to them about communication, conflict resolution, connection, compromise, compassion. I know you are. So why not say, well, I'm going to offer easy access offering, and I'm going to do an introduction on the 5 C's framework for healthy relationships by add your company name. All you need to do then is do short videos, or you can do sessions around it, okay? And your client knows that these are the things that will be covered. And if they want to add more, fantastic, but you have a nice little framework for them to work on. Another one that we've seen is self-esteem. It's a big one in entrepreneurship, but as well as self-esteem just in general with people right now. So you might want to create the 6-pillar framework for building self-esteem, which would include things like living consciously, self-acceptance, gaining perspective, accountability, forgiving self, and cultivating a growth mindset. Notice how we took what you already did and we put it into a system. This is Counselor 3.0. Now, your high ticket offering, and you need to have an introduction offering and then a build offering if you want sustainability. Where do your clients go after? So they might want to go into a multi-session counseling package that includes a set number of one-on-one sessions, the resource kit that we created before, and also pre-recorded videos that you can house completely for free on Google Classroom, and maybe even WhatsApp support. If you're offering WhatsApp support, make sure you specify the times. I will be available between 9 and 5 o'clock on weekdays. Please do allow a few hours for me, as I might be busy with other sessions. But now we're creating something that's quite robust in terms of an offering. Now that you have your offering and you have your system, it's time to scale. It's time to take that business model and say, how can I increase my profitability as a business owner, keep my costs low, or even reducing would be a fantastic thing, and stop investing large amounts of things in products or applications or even trainings that I might not need. You have to know your numbers with Counselor 4.0. You have to understand, what is my expenditure, what is my income, and your expenditure is everything. It's not just your diesel or your petrol, but it's also a percentage of your electricity, a percentage of your data that you use on your phone and your Wi-Fi. It's that coffee that you had to get because you were collaborating with someone. It's those squishy toys that you bought the other day from your practice. It's the lunch that you took in between clients. So make sure you keep all your invoices so you understand how much you're really spending in terms of your business. And now we want to make sure that scalability does not add any more cost that is not necessary, and it has a high reward. So what does this look like? And you might have heard this. When you're scaling, you can scale without losing soul, because you're growing the community of people that you have, but you're not growing complexity. So you're not making it more work for yourself. And this is the name of the game. You do not have to work harder to have more impact. You just have to work a little bit different. Membership communities are a great way to do this. And I'm going to show you a few apps that you can use. And membership communities mean, once you've identified that niche client, parents between the ages of 30 and 35, or women who are transitioning in their career, you can then create a membership community, either paid or free, specifically for them to be able to use each other in the group as support, and then partake in whatever activities you have. And no, not all membership communities need to be paid for. You can also offer courses and workshops and master classes. If you are someone who likes to speak and you have, experience in this, absolutely find one topic, one workshop, one course. That's how I do it. One topic, one workshop, one course, to be able to cover exactly what you need. And that person should feel enabled in their own life and to help others. You could also have craft and connect sessions, lunch and launches, and ship and shares. So how do I create these communities? You can use WhatsApp. You can use Circle. So circle.so is another, I think they have a $9 per month plan now, which is a great option for you. You can use Mighty Networks, which is slightly more expensive, but it has a lot of functionality. You can use Google Classroom, which is completely for free, and we like that, low cost. Or you could use Kajabi, which is an integrated system that has all of your information, or Teachable, which is predominantly for your trainers in the room today. You also want to automate the mundane, and we can do this in a number of ways, but a CRM is important. This is where you house all your clients, the invoicing, when they came in, when the anniversary of joining you is, and you can do better than just an Excel sheet, okay? And you can actually automate all the mundane tasks via an app like Calendly, which is a free app, Or Sage Accounting, yes, you can use it, which is a very low cost application that pulls everything together. Zoho is also a great app and I like it. So you've got a little twirl there. Or HubSpot. Please go have a look at HubSpot. They are also extremely good in terms of a CRM system. So as I end my session today with just 2 slides, it's a point to reflect and activate, right? Which stage of evolution is your business at now? 1, 2, 3, or 4? And what have you been inspired to do differently today? I hope that you take a few minutes to pause and reflect on that question, because here's the thing. Evolution is not about becoming something new. It's about remembering who you were meant to be all along and allowing your business to form around your life, because you are worth it. You can do it. And yes, it's just beyond your grasp. So thank you everyone so much for your time. That is my presentation. I'm not sure if there's any time for questions, but I am willing to take them. Dr. Lee, oh. Yes, Sandra. You are muted. Sorry, Josh, I can't hear Sandra. Maybe I'll take Fatima. Fatima, let's see if we can hear you.
Sorry, Keshni, the talking is permitted, but it seems like they're not unmuting themselves. Maybe take a few questions.
Oh, there we go,
Okay.
Fatima. Thank you, Josh. Yes, Fatima, I can hear you.
Thank you for this lovely talk. I really enjoy it. It's like give you like motivation to start, like or to change from the Nokia to the what to the Apple.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear
really nice.
that.
I like the business model that you give, and I like especially the one that like you're not like stay on on session, and like that is you must also like expose yourself to other options. And my question, I give a workshop before even I was registered, and child development and also supporting the teachers and like that. My question here is how now me as a awareness counselor to give those courses or those workshop, but with the CPD points.
So this is an interesting one. Dr. Liesel, do you want me to answer that, or would you like to pop in? It's about CPDs.
Keshni, you may. I'm sure you are excited too, because we've been working on this for a very long time. Please share.
Okay. So Fatima, it's really good, and I can hear that you have some lived experience because you've done this before you were a wellness counselor. So congratulations on the lived experience that you have. So if you did have an idea for a CPD course, and you thought, oh, I'd like to put something together, you are more than welcome to send it to the ASCHP with a motivation. And you would just have an overview, you'd have a background of your experience, and the team would be able to guide you accordingly as to what that would look like and the process and the forms and all of that information. But I will say one thing, Fatima, as a trainer myself, I would say if you're going to target a certain group like educators, I would test it first. So I would approach the schools and say, can I do a workshop in the morning for your teachers? Maybe choose 2 schools and offer them complimentary, just to test to see if it's still a need. And then you will also be able to then, put that down and say, I have already trained X number of educators in the space. This was the feedback. This is how it's aligned to wellness, etc. Because sometimes when we train, we're not really looking at the immediate need now. So that would be what I would say. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Sorry, Fatima, can I quickly just add
Yes,
on there?
please add.
We are in the process also of, we actually developed everything. We're waiting for the functionality on the new website. And Kishni, maybe you can just tell a short
I
little
would love to.
information on that. But once all the functionalities of the new website is up and running, we will definitely inform everybody that there will be an opportunity for people who would love to become accredited CPD trainers to present their CPDs onto our platform. So,
Yes.
Kishni, please, first of all, let me thank you for your wonderful presentation. And take the time. That was very insightful, and I'm sure, we've learned a lot, and it will excite everybody just to improve their own practices and grow. So thank you so much. And yes, Keshni, if you can take a few minutes and
Yes,
please just
absolutely.
put everybody on the new website. Thank you.
Yes, I'm
And
very
then
excited.
once you're done, you will introduce our next speaker.
Yes, I absolutely will. So
Wonderful.
it's not ready yet. So that's why I'm always a little bit hesitant. But we will have our own learning management system at the ASCHP. And that means that it will be seamless integration for you to have access to CPDs. But also, yes, it opens a door for you to then be able to apply. Like everybody else, everyone will be given the same opportunity to apply to actually train. And once you have that approval, then we will then house that on the ASCHP LMS system. So for those of you that are interested in that, it's a good time for you to get your frameworks in order and put everything together and test your concept. But this is exciting because you will then have a beautiful bouquet of services and different people who will all be speaking to their own particular lived experience and speciality areas. So we look forward, Fatima, to seeing yours. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think we're going to continue. Our next topic is a very interesting one. Pricing with integrity, balancing accessibility and professional worth. So that is with Noluthando. Noluthando, you with us?
Good morning.
There you are.
Yes, hi.
Wonderful. Now, Luthanda, I'm going to be doing your intro, and then I'll hand over to you. So, Noluthando Nkosi, a corporate strategist. So, Noluthando Nkosi is a dynamic corporate strategist with a proven track record of driving business growth and transformation through innovative strategies and people-centered solutions. With expertise spanning talent management, organizational development, and marketing and market positioning, she partners with organizations to align vision with execution, ensuring sustainable impact. She's passionate about building future-ready businesses. I love that. Noluthando blends strategic insight with practical execution to unlock value and foster long-term success. Noluthando, it is indeed an honor to have you here today. Handing over to you, and thank you.
All right. No, thank you so much, Keshni. I think your talk was very, very informative, and I think your talk really resonated, with what I'm about to talk about today. Because the moment, we start stepping into that business mindset, we face a new challenge. And it's really how do we honor our calling to help whilst also honoring our worth? And that's where my talk sort of comes in today. It's about that very tension that we all feel, especially in service-based work, like counseling, pricing really with integrity, because the truth is stepping into entrepreneurship isn't just about running a business, it's about ensuring, that business is sustainable at the end of the day. So yeah, with that being said, good morning, everyone. I think it's such a great privilege to be here today, and to just talk about something, that every business owner, freelancer, consultants, and, even large organizations, wrestle with, and that's pricing. Sorry. What is happening there? So how do we decide, what we're worth without excluding the people or communities that we're serving, especially in your position and in your line of work? How do we price ethically in a world where cheapest often wins the deal, even when it shouldn't? Today, we're going to unpack how integrity, can be the bridge between accessibility and professional worth, and how getting that balance right doesn't just serve your bank account, it serves your brand, your reputation, and your long-term sustainability. So what exactly, is the challenge when we talk about pricing? It's how do you price accessibly without devaluing yourself? Sort of the pricing, tug of war, the challenge between affordability versus value versus survival. And let's be honest, pricing is very emotional. It's not just about, the numbers. It's about identity. It's about confidence, market positioning, and sometimes survival. Many of us either fall into one of the two traps: overpricing because we believe our time and expertise are priceless, or underpricing because we're afraid clients won't stay if we charge. We're afraid clients won't stay if we charge what we're truly worth. And in your case, feeling guilty for your pricing because your clients are actually in need of the service. But neither of that extreme, decision-making works. Integrity in pricing means aligning your value, your purpose, and impact with fairness, transparency, and sustainability. So how do you price yourself accessibly without devaluing yourself? So what does integrity in pricing really mean? It means integrity is a combination of consistency, transparency, and fair value. Integrity in pricing isn't just about being honest, it's about being consistent, being the same person and brand regardless of who's paying the bill. It means that you don't inflate your quotes based on who's asking. You don't promise premium, service and deliver average. You explain your value clearly so clients understand exactly what they're paying for, not just how much it is that they're paying. And honestly, transparency breeds trust, and trust is priceless in business. When clients feel respected, they return. When employees see fairness, they stay. And when competitors respect you, they refer you. That's the long game of pricing integrity. So the balance, accessibility versus worth. Now, this is where the magic happens. Balancing accessibility and worth is both an art, and a strategy that is learned long term. So let's unpack 3 ways, in which to achieve this balance. And I like to use the different, tiered valued systems. So often different entry points for different clients without compromising your brand. For an example, Canva offers a free version that builds loyalty and accessibility. So you are immediately available, and able to use, that method of graphic design. But the pro plan, it sustains the business. So everyone feels included, yet professionalism remains valued. Education through transparency. When clients say that's expensive, you don't defend, you educate. You show what's behind the cost, you show the expertise, you show the time, you show the value, because integrity is explaining your price with clarity and not shame. Offering access. Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Our counselors would love to see your screen. Is it possible for you to just take a dual screen?
Can you not see my screen?
We can see you and your screen, so it's quite
Oh,
small.
okay.
I think you're on dual screen.
Oh, okay. Let me
Don't
just-
mind. Thank you. They'd love to see it.
No
Thank you.
problem. Is it set?
That is perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Where was I? All right. I was just talking about offering access, and not discounts. So instead of slashing prices, we offer different options, either a payment plan, a project phase, or scaled down services. This keeps your worth intact whilst being sensitive, to accessibility. As soon as you start offering discounts for your counseling sessions, for an example, you unintentionally dilute the perceived value of your service. The client begins to associate your help, with cost and not transformation. And the real value of your work is actually the outcome. And that then becomes secondary because you're not really prioritizing, what it is that you should be, which is your pricing. So that is the sort of tiered value system and the balance, between accessibility and value. Next. And now we're going to go into sort of the psychology of worth. Your pricing isn't just what you charge. It's a signal. It's what you signal. So if you undervalue your services, the market it believes you. And if you confidently stand by your worth, the market adjusts. Integrity in pricing means, being authentic in your confidence, not inflated and not apologetic. So ask yourself, like, would I pay this for my own service? And if not, either the price or the value add in your service needs to change. And now we're going to go into something that's, I think, a bit more relevant for you. And it's just the emotional cost and then the emotional side of pricing, which is the guilt, the need, and the value, sort of as well, like a tug of war. I want to touch on something we often don't talk about, which is obviously the emotional price of siding. This is especially real for people in caring professions. So counselors, coaches, social workers, therapists, and anyone whose work sort of changes lives and not just the system. Because when your client sits in front of you in pain or in crisis and you know that they need your help, it's easy to feel guilty for charging, what your service is worth. You ask yourselves, they need me. Maybe I should reduce my fee. Maybe I shouldn't even charge them at all. And yet that guilt, though it comes from compassion, can slowly erode your own sense of value. So that's something to be very, very careful of. Your price is not just for the session, it's for the outcome, how they leave feeling after that encounter and that session with you. People don't pay for the hour that they spend with you. They pay for the transformation that happens because of that encounter. And so when you undercharge out of guilt, you unintentionally send a message that your work is less valuable. But when you charge with integrity, not greed, but fairness, you tell your clients that I believe that this work matters enough to sustain it. Because if you burn out or can't sustain your practice, you essentially help fewer people and not more, which sort of defeats, the objective of your organization. So pricing with integrity means respecting both of the sides, the emotional reality of the client's need and the professional reality of your worth. So you really need to find a good balance between the value that you are adding, ensuring as well that your service that you are delivering is a value add, and therefore that pricing will easily, be justifiable when engaging with your clients. All right. And integrity in pricing isn't just about fairness, it's ultimately about sustainability. We all want to run very sustainable practices and businesses. And ultimately, even in counseling, it is a business, and you should view it in that way. Because when you price for the value of the outcome, you ensure you can keep changing outcomes, for years to come. And recently we had a client that came in for pricing strategy and marketing positioning. And they are a small HR consultancy and they wanted to remain accessible to startups, businesses that often that can't afford big agency retainers, for example. But at the same time, they needed to honor their own worth and sustain their team. So the challenge was if they dropped their fees to accommodate small clients, they'd compromise their financial sustainability. But if they stuck to standard corporate rates, then they'd exclude the very clients that they also wanted to empower. So they reimagined their pricing approach and came to us, and we then suggested, the growth partnership model. And here's how the model works. So instead of charging a high upfront flat retainer, that they set a base fee, that covered the essentials. So the time, the efforts, the operating costs were covered in that base fee, but then built in performance-based grossed components. So in other words, part of their payments became linked to their outcomes. So a successful placement that meets quality and retention metrics, gained a certain sort of top up from a pricing perspective. A reduce in turnover rates, that was also another performance sort of incentive, where they can then come in and sort of justify their pricing, as well as hitting a set milestone, milestone that showed measurable business growth. So once your clients can also see that you are really adding a lot of value, you puts you in a better standing point and a better point, to justify your pricing and to sort of scale it, as the services increase and as your encounters and as the relationships grow. So the structure did a few, powerful things. So it aligned interests. The consultancy wasn't just working for the clients, they were working towards the clients, towards the shared success. It built a lot of trust between the two sort of individuals and organizations, and it created sustainability. The consultancy still protected its base revenue by ensuring that that base fee covered all the essentials, operational costs, the time, the value, and so there was no burnout or underpayment, and the clients didn't even feel as though they were being overcharged for the service. So they really met a nice balance, between the two, between accessibility and value, and ensuring that they are still catering, to their clients, and those that they want to empower. So that's really the beauty of a model, that's a growth partnership model. It transforms pricing from a transaction into a collaboration, which is really ultimately what we want. Instead of the old mindset of you pay me for this, it becomes a sort of we both win if the outcome is achieved. And so it shifts the conversation from cost to value and from service provider to strategic partner. And now imagine the same principle can be applied in other spaces. So even in counseling or consulting, where your success is tied not to the hour, but to the impact that your session has with that individual. It's pricing that rewards purpose and performance and not, just the presence. So integrity scales, beyond pricing. Pricing integrity shapes your entire ecosystem. Clients trust you, employees respect your fairness, communities feel included, and your brand really earns authenticity. And that's currency that money can buy, the trust that you really build, with your clients and why they keep coming back to you for that particular service. So when we price with integrity, we don't just balance members, we balance purpose and we balance, prosperity. So I know that was a bit quite short, but I'm just leaving time for questions. So in closing, I really do want you to just remember sort of the 3 golden rules of pricing with integrity. And that's firstly, just be transparent, because clarity builds trust faster than discounts do. So when I say transparency, it's really being upfront and unapologetic about what exactly it is, that they're getting. So focusing as well on the aftermath, of that hour session or that workshop that you would be proposing, to your clients, being transparent that this is the amount of time, that it takes, this is the value, and sort of, really establishing that it is sort of priceless, and being able to stand firm, in the pricing that you're doing, but also be consistent. Your worth doesn't change by audience, industry, or circumstance. So you don't look at someone and sort of say, oh, no, for this specific counseling session, I will charge this individual so and so. And then the next person comes in and it's a different pricing. I think try as much as possible to be consistent in your pricing. and be firm. That also then really breeds that trust. But also be courageous, which is something that is scary and terrifying to do. Integrity sometimes means just saying no, to misaligned clients, being able to sort of discern when it is the right clients that is really in need of your service, and seeing exactly how you can offer, tiered value systems, for an example, to ensure that they are still gaining access to your clients, but really being able to just say no to clients that are misaligned with your brand, or misaligned, with the type of service or industry or value that you are trying to bring. I think that's something very difficult where we never just want to walk away from business, but that is something that ends up saving you a lot and keeping your business sustainable in the long run. So pricing with integrity isn't just good business. It's literally a leadership statement. It says, I know my value and I value others enough to be fair as well. So thank you, and here's to building a world where integrity and accessibility coexist beautifully.
Wow.
And just for my contact details, so there's an info@nexelica.co.za, as well as our WhatsApp hotline. So any consultation requests, any further information into pricing, even the CRMs that Keshni mentioned earlier, anything, from a business development and market positioning aspects, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Noluthando. That is powerful. Discernment, saying no to misaligned clients. And I love that. Pricing with integrity isn't just good business, it's a leadership statement.
Yes.
So powerful. So thank you so much. We do have time for questions. So I'm wondering if there are any questions for Noluthando. You can stop sharing, Noluthando. Yes. Asia, I hope I said your name correctly. You can unmute and ask your question. Asia, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but you just need to unmute. Josh, Sandra, and Asia are still here, but I can't hear either of them, just so you know. Maybe Matthew. Let's try Matthew. Matthew?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, we
Yes, we
can.
can.
Awesome. So yeah, I just had a little bit of a question regarding the pricing and things like that. Obviously, as counselors, we would like to make ourselves as accessible as possible. And I like to obviously do a lot of pro bono work, but when it comes to our regular pricing structure, and say, as I think it's South African Mental Health Awareness Month, would we then say, to make it more accessible, look at adding discounts, although we don't want to necessarily take, like how you were explaining, and take away from what we are offering, but for those kind of months or special opportunities for clients to take advantage of?
That's a great question, and I think it's really about finding a good balance between what we would call marketing and your brand positioning, because ultimately it's very relevant to a type of month where it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's not just the discounts based on an individual coming to you and you are feeling guilty for charging them. That's a very different instance. So that is more from a marketing perspective, and really ensuring that your brand or your organization or your service is accessible, but also being able to be firm in the fact that if you say that this discount applies for a week, stand to that. Don't prolong that, and say no, actually we've decided to extend it a bit more. Just be courageous enough, to set specific targets or deadlines for yourself, and also just remembering that based cost model. So even with your discounts, keeping into consideration the fact that you do have basic operating costs, or how you would have calculated that each session is, and how much you're discounting from that, ensuring that even with the discounts that you're offering, that you still keep that base model to ensure that your business is still sustainable, because it's great for the traction, it's great for the visibility, it's great for the service and the value that you're adding, to your clients. But at the end of the day, you still need to, keep the objective in mind that it is a practice that still needs to be sustainable. So ensuring that even when you do discounts, there's still that base operating cost that you're considering, and that you never ever compromise on that.
100%. Thank you. And I think it is mostly along the side of marketing side of where, attracting new clients and such. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Noluthando. Asiya, can we try you again? If you could just unmute yourself. No. Okay, let's try Alindi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes, we can.
can.
Hi, I did put the question in the box, but basically I wanted to know if I'm starting out as a brand new counselor, I've got my Psych 3, and I've been doing various other courses and stuff, but I'm still waiting to get into my honors. What would be a good starting price for like a lay counselor and wellness practice to start with? Where do we start?
I think that's more of a markets-related question. And I think Keshni would be able to give, more insight into that. But what I would say is that obviously you are still very much developing. And so a tiered system then becomes, a sort of a great start for you. So do you have then 3 pricing models that you're implementing? So let's say a 1,000 Rand starting price for 2 workshops, for an example, and then as you go to more workshops or more sessions, that increases, and sort of bundling up the various packages. I think that allows your clients to be able to choose whichever package sort of fits them. So saying 2 sessions for the price of 1,000 Rand, but obviously you would have in the background incorporated all the costs that you need to keep you afloat, and still use a lot of psychological pricing to make that seem as though 1,000 Rand for 2 sessions is like you're really affordable on the market. So I think working around those different pricing structures, but even, just payment plans, because you feel as though, if you still feel as though you haven't, built enough trust within your clients or yourself, because you are still starting up, you are still upskilling, creating those different, tiered systems or those payment plans, or even working per, session, I think that's helpful. But in terms of the actual costing, I do think that it's wise to look at market rates, and I do think market rates sort of fluctuates based on the experience, and the value that you are offering.
Thank you. Where would we look for that? Maybe is there a standard guide that we can go to? Maybe it can be sent to us or something.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where, again, Keshni, happy.
Lindy, there is a guideline that is available. However, the ASCHP doesn't mandate a specific cost based on the individual themselves. So what I would recommend that you do is that you actually contact the office, and then they can send you what we have in terms of the rules and regulations governing your practice. But I do want to say as well, to take into consideration, like Noluthando said, experience, also your area and your community. If you're doing it online, if you're doing it in person, your overhead costs are important. And also, what do you give your clients? So even if you just give them if you give them a digital PDF, how long does it take to create that PDF for them? Or if you're giving them something printed out, how much does that cost? So you need to first have your base costs and then add a percentage of your profits into that. It also helps, Alindi, you're in this amazing group with over, 475 other counselors. So also collaboration with other ASCHP counselors and some market research into ASCHP counselors to see what they're offering in your areas will also allow you to benchmark, because it is different per area and it is different, per region even. as we've seen in the past. So that might help as well. But if you reach out and ask for assistance with your specific needs, then we would be able to guide you.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome. Can we take
Keshni,
two more?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes, Dr. Liesel.
you jump in
Please,
there.
hop
Just
in.
a short, just a important note that whatever you decide after your research and everything taken into consideration, after you've decided what your fee structure would be, it's very important to make it known before any session starts, and that it forms part of the client intake form, and that you and your client are in agreement with what is charged. So that is just important, something to take note of.
Super important. Absolutely. Transparency is super important. And if you are a VAT registered company, remember you need to disclose as well. And you can't charge VAT if you're not VAT registered, and you don't have to be VAT registered until they tell you you need to be VAT registered.
Yeah, you need to reach a certain threshold from a
Yes.
revenue perspective here.
Thank you. So let's see, Sindiswa,
All right,
would you like
can
to
you
ask
hear
a question?
me? Okay.
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can.
I'm asking about because I bundle my sessions, and then the bundling starts from 5 sessions to 10. So the bundling, to incentivize bundling, because I want my client to finish the entire treatment plan, I give discounts. So I heard Nolutando talking about how discounts can actually make people feel that you're not sure of yourself. So is that because I only do it to incentivize, because people then will come for one session, and then when it's session 3 they don't come. So if they pay for 5, at least we can complete the treatment. So I only give discounts in that regard.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to that tiered valued system. So in a psychological sense, that pricing would be for 3 sessions, this is how much it is. Then you would move to 6 sessions, then you would move to 10. So it really gives the consumer and the clients, firstly, an option to pick, the number, and it's bundled, which is great because it's guaranteeing you, that return. And in that instance, your discount is not as visible as if you were to say discounts on this rate, for an example, because you've sort of worked it into your pricing strategically. By saying 5, sessions for this amount, you have in the back end, obviously, like Keshni mentioned, have considered your operational costs, have considered your time, have considered your value, have considered the outcome, of the session. So it's not evident to the clients and to the, person that you're servicing. The difference is when you are visibly making it, a point to constantly have, discounts. There's some items that we see in store that are honestly always on discount, and people start to question, what is wrong with this item? I've never seen it, being sold at full price. It's always on discount. And, just think about, the sort of feeling and emotion that evokes in you when you come across that, and sort of try to match it, to your practice. But at the end of the day, it's all about, just really taking into consideration the fact that your organization still needs to grow, be sustainable. And if you do get to a point where you employ people, you really can't afford to be offering discounts as and when, it pleases. There's a lot of, expenditure and expenses that would come into play. So look at it from a long-term perspective. But right now you are on the right track because you're bundling it. You're not advertising it as a discount. You're just guaranteeing yourself return clients.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you.
And just to add to that, because Sindisa gives us a good opportunity to maybe also mention the word treatment and how we can evolve that into a word that perhaps is better related to wellness counseling. When we think treatment, we think therapy. So we encourage the use of the word care plans, wellness interventions, wellness programs, something like that. And then also just, just at the back of your mind, you're thinking it's a maximum of 10 sessions per client per issue. because then that gives us a good determining factor to say if this client is in need prior to that of other assistance, that the client doesn't stay with us and that we're able to refer and recommend. So thank you, Sandispa, for that opportunity to be able to mention that. It is appreciated.
And just to the use of the word, treatments, it psychologically creates a long-term, impression. And so even when you are marketing your services to clients, sort of marketing it and saying treatments, it already gives them the impression that it is long-term and it's not a one session and the issue is resolved. So that also guarantees you some return business if you are very, selective with the type of wording that you're using.
Yes, which is why we like programs, because there's an out to it. And it's not towards illness, it's more towards the continuum of wellness. So we have time for one more. We're just gonna, because Clarissa is here. So Clarissa, would you like to ask your question?
Hi there, yes. It's similar to the previous question that was asked, but I wanted to find out if I advertise and I say, if you pay for 6 sessions upfront, you get a discount of 10%. Would that be okay to do?
Yes, so that would be okay because you're not saying if you book 1 or you book 2, you're ensuring yourself longevity. From a service perspective and an outcome perspective, you're also ensuring that you are really in that 6 sessions able to get from point A to point B with their issue that they're coming to you with. So it's not just return business, it's giving yourself as well enough time to sort of establish that relationship with that client, to establish their issues. And after 6 sessions, I think if they come back for the 6th one, you are able, to give recommendations that they would trust. And so you in 6 sessions, you've guaranteed yourself, like I said, return business, your operating costs on the ground are covered, and you've bundled it. So the issue becomes when it's literally like it's your first time meeting this person, and you are now offering a discount for 1 session. They may just take that, and it doesn't bind them to return. It would be up to, the value add. But ensuring that you are bundling, your packages. I think from a counseling perspective, that's a really great, method to ensure that you are still, giving value and you are helping as your industry needs you to do. But you've also taken into consideration, just that revenue generation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just one point to remember when you're offering packages, and if your client is paying upfront, is what is your refund policy, your cancellation policy? Make sure you put that everyone into your T&Cs, same as Dr. Liesel mentioned with the pricing, so that it's super transparent. And then just don't touch the money until all of those things are done. Because the worst thing is if you need to refund and you don't have the funds to do it.
So just to quickly add on that, so I run a recruitment agency, and so the way we do our pricing and our refund or guarantee model is that we will place a candidate, and if the candidate leaves within a month, we'll give you a credit note of 80%. If they leave within 2 months, we'll give you 60% credit note, and if they leave within 3 months, we'll give you 40%. So that guarantees that in that 20% that we still get, even if they leave in the first month, our operating costs are covered. And instead of saying we'll give you a refund, with my industry is a bit more flexible, we say credit notes. So that means they can come back or they can refer someone for that 80% for us to do an additional placement for them. So just being able to play around those type of things.
That's very good advice. Thank you so much, Noluthando, for your expertise and your wisdom. Okay, everybody, so we will be taking a short biology break. And this is just to give your body a chance to rest and recuperate. And we will be back and resume at 12:15. You do not want to miss it because we are talking about ethics and we're talking about supervision. So we look forward to seeing you all back at 12:15. You are welcome to stay in the room, just mute and videos off. See you then. Bye. Okay, welcome back, everybody. It is 12:15. I'm glad that so many of you stayed and made your way back for this very, very, very interesting second half. We're going to now be talking about practicing within scope, why ethical boundaries strengthen your practice. And our speaker is Alicia Westhuizen. So, Alicia, you with us?
Oh my goodness, Keshni, sorry, my camera is just warming up again for a second after the break. Apologies, it'll be back in a second.
No, that's completely fine because I'm going to read your bio. So this
Sure.
will be some warm-up time, and it is an impressive bio. So I'm going to read that out and then I'll hand over to you, Alicia.
Thank
So
you.
Alicia Westhuizen is a clinical social worker and co-founder of Counseling Matters Training, together with a business partner, Mariska van der Meulen. I hope I said that correctly.
Yes.
Alicia is subject specialist in the social sciences field. Her greatest passion lies in training and development, where she combines theory and practice to empower others to make a meaningful difference in the counseling and helping professions. Alicia has over 20 years of experience in the counseling field. She's worked with children, teenagers, couples, and families, and is currently part of the Mariki counseling practice in Johannesburg North. Alicia has extensive experience in training and facilitation and has been a guest lecturer at both the University of Cape Town and the University of Johannesburg. She also provides supervision to social work students at UCT, UJ, and Wits University. She has developed training material for various programs from NACOSA, including child and youth care, basic counseling, and mental health literacy. Alicia is currently pursuing her PhD as well at Northwest University with her thesis, and this is so important, developing a contextual framework for sustainable online counseling practice in South Africa. In addition, she is a fellow accredited Enneagram practitioner and a qualified accredited assessor and facilitator with HWCETA. Shoo! Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing your wisdom, Alicia. Over to you.
Thank you, Keshni, and what a privilege to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to share my shut class. There we go. Right, guys, thank you so much for this opportunity. As I said, I am aware that ethics is a little bit of a challenging topic. So my title is Walking the Line, how important it is to stay within our scope and to strengthen our ethical boundaries. So just to first of all make it very clear that there is a difference between what our ethical responsibility is and what a legal responsibility is within our profession. It's a little bit blurred sometimes because ethics, as we said, reflects our values, our integrity, and our commitment to what is doing right. So most of us would agree that doing what is right should be legally what is right. But it's not always, because there is a touch of subjectivity when it comes to ethics, all right? So we have to make sure that we understand the difference between what is ethically required of us and what is legally required of us. So obviously, legally, it means that there is a law that is going to govern the boundaries of our profession. And this, when it's legal, it's about a duty and a compliance. And of course, we know that when we are breaking a legal law, there are severe consequences. There could be fines. There could even be prison sentences, all right? So whereas when we break an ethical law, we're not necessarily going to end up in a court and have to, pay fines and end up in prison. But it's as important because it, number one, for many reasons, it has a protective function. So we have to understand that even though it's not a legal requirement when we're doing ethics, it's as important, almost as if it was legal. What we need to remember that to be legally recognized as a counsellor in South Africa, there are a few requirements. Number one, we have to be registered with a SAQA recognized professional body like the ASCHP. For those of you who are not familiar with SAQA, It's the South African Qualifications Authority. They are the board or the organization that gives organizations like the ASCHP, like the HPCSA, like the South African Council for Social Services Professions, they give them the authority to be able to say, you are in control, you are the designated board that gives the guidelines as to what is ethically required of a profession. So that is what we have to remember, that ASCHP is the SACWA recognized body that gives us our ethical requirements for our profession. All right. The second requirement is that we have to work within a defined scope of practice, and the ASCHP does that beautifully. It gives us as wellness counselors the scope of practice on the website that requires what it is that we are allowed to do. And then, of course, the third thing that we need to do to be legally recognized is to comply with the national legislation and ethical codes. National legislation means, for example, what is a counselor or wellness counselor versus what is a psychologist? For example, if I have to, as a social worker, that's my background, if I have to go out and pretend that I can diagnose and advertise that I am in a position to be able to, offer IQ tests, for example, I am breaking a legal law. That's not ethics. That's legal. I'm not allowed to break my scope of practice around what a social worker, a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist legally is allowed to do. So there's just a few guidelines in terms of what it is that is legally recognized for a counselor in South Africa. Now, ethics is very, very broad, and I'm just going to list the 10 core ethics that sort of governs counseling in general, whether you are a counselor, as a social worker, a counselor, as a wellness counselor, general core ethics within counseling. Number one, you all know this, it's something that we talk a lot about, confidentiality and privacy. Secondly, competence and scope awareness, knowing where those boundaries are. Thirdly, respect for client autonomy, letting clients make informed choices, avoiding coercion, and obviously promoting self-determination. Non-maleficence, in other words, we are striving, no matter what we do, how we do it, our core motivation is to do no harm to clients. Justice and fairness, to make sure that clients, there's that word equal treatment, but we don't use the word treatment, but equal support, whatever we are offering, to make sure that there is no discriminatory problems, that we are offering fair and equal services to everybody, to always act in an integrative and honest way, to make sure we keep within our professional boundaries, that we are always culturally sensitive and making sure that our practice is diverse. We live in a beautiful country where there is so much diversity, so we have to make sure that we are on top of it when it comes to that. Accountability, and then, of course, supervision, to making sure that we are always in supervision, to make sure that we are ethically sound in our practice. So those are just 10 core ethics. But what we are going to do is to delve into one or a few of those in a little bit more depth. I've put those flames up there because in general, ethics can be very boring. All right. So we know that I'm like that anyway. If I see a document or an article that I have to read about ethics, I tend to feel like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a little bit boring. But there are some hot topics within ethics that does keep the passion going a little bit. And we're going to look at that today. So the first one is we're going to look at the scope of practice, because within the ASCHP wellness scope, there is a little bit of a blurred line around what is it that we can and cannot do. So we're going to have a look at that. When I say blurred, it's not any fault of the ASCHP. It's just those blurred gray areas in terms of when is it that what is it that I'm allowed to do, and where does it become a little bit blurry? We're going to have a look at some of those scenarios. We are going to look at the green, the red, and the gray zones to be able to help us identify those blurred zones. Then we're going to look at a second hot topic in ethics, and that is the ethics for online counseling. As Keshni mentioned, this is the theme or the topic of my PhD research. It's something that is very vague at the moment, not just within South Africa, but in the world. And there's definitely a need for specific ethics around online counseling. We're going to look at the third one, which is the confidentiality versus the duty to protect. When and how do we do that? And then we're going to look at some dual and conflictual relationships in terms of especially when ethical dilemmas come into the play when we are counseling clients. And then we've already touched on this morning. Nolotundu did a lovely presentation, but we're going to also just look at the ethics around what it is that we can and cannot charge, or should or shouldn't charge, where the guidelines are, and what are the factors that we can consider when determining what fees we are presenting. So those are the things that we're going to be looking at in this presentation. And of course, guys, just a disclosure that everything that I'll be sharing with is for the wellness counselors. I'm not sort of looking at holistic or even the lay counselors or support counselors. This is specifically for wellness and specialist wellness counselors. I'm going to give you a few scenarios, and I want you to think about whether you have seen this or experienced this in your counseling practice. Your client comes up, you didn't expect it, it's sort of out of the blue, and your client indicates that they don't want to be anymore and that they are considering suicide. Has any of that happened to you before? And as I said, we don't necessarily take in clients that are depressed, that have got depression or saying that they are suicidal, but it's not something that we can predict, is it? So it's something that often just arrives in front of us and something that we're not always prepared for. The second one, should I take medication? When your client poses that question to you as a wellness client, where and what do we say in those scenarios? Because medication falls outside of our scope of practice. But how do we deal with this? We can't predict when a client says to us or asks us these questions. Another scenario that can be very difficult to manage is when your client starts saying, I'm hearing voices, I've taken drugs. Now all of a sudden I'm starting to experience this. What do I do? Once again, outside of our practice, but not something that we could have predicted was going to happen. And then, of course, GBV, which unfortunately in our country is something that we are faced with a lot. How do we deal with these scenarios? Before we answer that, I want us to just think a little bit about why are boundaries and the scope of our practice so important? Why is it important that there are boundaries? First of all, there are consequences if we don't stick to that. What are the consequences and who is affected by the consequences? First of all, the client. If we do not practice within those boundaries, first of all, your client is at risk of not getting the appropriate care. You and us as counselors, we are then liable to there'll be complaints about us. We even have the option of being deregistered if we move outside of our practice. And once again, if we are constantly doing more and more and more, we are at risk of burnout. So there are risks for us as counselors as well. And then, of course, there is risk to the profession as it damages the credibility of all ASCHP counselors every single time we step outside of our scope. So that's so important for us to always remember that boundaries and the scope is there for a reason, and the main reason is for protection, to protect the client, to protect us, and to protect the profession. Now we're going to look at where is that line between supporting our clients and stepping into a psychologist or psychiatrist or any other profession's role where our profession is so closely linked to those of others. How we're going to do that is we're going to look at the green zone, those areas that we are very much able to work in, where there's no questions about, the gray zone where it starts to overlap, and then the red zone, the area where we as wellness counselors should not at all be working in. To do that, I want to show you what we call the mental state, health states pyramid. So at the bottom, the green is mental health, and we can almost refer to that as a preventative approach. So what do we do there in the mental health in the light green stage? Those are when we help our clients to maintain their good mental health. Things like helping them to have exercise, yoga, journaling, self-care. But what is important to know about that green strip, the first one, is that most people don't need professional help when they are experiencing good mental health, all right? They might come to you as a counselor wanting to be able to get some ideas as how to maintain and prevent other issues. And this is where we are very much able to help and assist. We can give them programs, wellness programs, etc., etc. So that is an area where we very much can function. The next pyramid up, normative distress. That is the stress that most people go through in a lifetime. We all, for example, have gone through exam stress. We might have all experienced what it's like starting a new job, that stress that we have to deal with there, moving to a new city or a new country or a new province. So though it's one level up from being preventative, now we're starting to experience things that are a little bit uncomfortable. And I will say that most people in this level can also find ways of managing their stress by themselves. But it's at this level where we start to find people starting to approach professional support. For example, children or young people that are really struggling to be able to deal with exam stress, they might come to us and say, can you please help us with some techniques or some coping strategies to help with those kinds of stress? So yeah, in the normative distress level, we start to get our referrals from clients. Then moving into the next level, the mental distress. This is where people are often really struggling and normally cannot or find it very difficult to be able to process and work through the distress that they are having on their own. And usually a professional service is needed, such as counseling. All right. So that is the broad sort of scope where it's very much safe for us as wellness counselors to work in. When we go to the top pyramid, that is where we experience mental illness or that we experience mental disorders. Now you'll see the little gray block fits in a little bit difficultly, but quite easily as well into that space between mental distress and disorders. The disorders, the purple triangle, is exactly where we do not want to work in, all right? That's the red area. All right. For example, what do we find there? Depression, clinical disorders, anxieties. Now, anxiety is a little bit of a gray area, and I'll explain it to you a little bit now. But where people are experiencing, for example, psychiatric disorders, psychosis, schizophrenia, personality disorders, that will be all in those purple block and the red where we don't necessarily want to be working, because that is where we are stepping outside of our scope and into the psychology and psychiatric world. And that is often where we find ourselves coming into trouble and where the other professions start to become a little bit upset with us. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. All right. So let's just explore once again the green zone, the go-ahead zones, the go-good zones. What does that look like? This is obviously, like I said, the preventative, but also maintaining good wellness. These would be, for example, helping our clients to be able to manage their social needs, occupational stresses, spiritual, etc., etc. An area which is, for me personally, is something that we do a lot in our training company, psychoeducation. All right. Now look at the picture that I've got up here. The DSM. Now, immediately a lot of thoughts will be thinking, oh my goodness, but Alicia, DSM, that's clinical stuff. That's not our job. That's outside of our scope. It is crucial that as wellness counselors, we know what is in this DSM. Why am I saying that? How are you going to be able to recognize symptoms of a mental disorder if you don't know what to look for? You have to be able to recognize, for example, the 5 criteria or symptoms of depression in order to be able to refer them to the right professions, such as psychologists and psychiatrists. So for those of you who thought Psych 101, 102, 203, 304, 404 didn't mean anything, it is essential that that psychological training that you had in your first 3 to 4 years didn't go to waste. You need to know the DSM in order to be able to understand what it is that you might be seeing in front of you in your client so that you can refer. You are not going to treat them. You are not going to counsel them. If you see that your client in front of you is showing symptoms of a mental illness or disorder, your ethical responsibility is to refer them to a psychologist or psychiatrist. And like I said, I'm repeating myself. How will you be able to do that if you don't know what the symptoms of depression, anxiety are? I want that to sink in a little bit. Okay. Thirdly, supportive counseling. What does supportive counseling look like? Those basic counseling skills that you were probably trained in, right? That I often say, we call them basic. It's not so basic. Asking questions in the right way, knowing the right questions to ask in a counseling session so that your client doesn't feel interrogated by all the what, when, who, where, why. You need to be able to have that really soft counseling approach in order to be able to be a really good supportive counselor. Life skills, something that we are very much allowed to and should be doing in our scope of practice. Effective communication skills, effective interpersonal skills, helping clients to make decisions, not making decisions for them, helping them to be able to find ways of making the right decision for themselves, etc., etc. And then, of course, stress management. We've spoken a lot about them, things like mindfulness, being able to breathe, exercise, etc., etc. Giving those kind of techniques is very, very much within our scope of practice. Now let's look at the red zone, the areas that we do not move into, the triangle right on top. First of all, you guys know this, but for clarity's sake, ASCHP counselors, wellness counselors, we cannot diagnose clients. Even though we are able to recognize the symptoms, we know the DSM, it's very clear perhaps that the client might be experiencing anxiety or depression. We are not allowed to diagnose our clients. We are not there to prescribe to our clients. And I'm not just talking medication. Prescribing, in other words, telling our clients, you have to get medication. That's not our job, all right? We have an ethical responsibility to be able to give the client what their options are, but it is not for us to prescribe and tell our clients what it is they should or shouldn't be doing. Psychiatric treatment. There's that word treatment. We don't use treatment at all. We don't move within the psychiatric realm at all. Long-term therapy, that is also not our role. And then, of course, we are not there to do specialized therapeutic models, for example, psychoanalysis, etc., outside of our scope of practice. So, guys, there it is in red and white. For those of you who want to know, that is what we do not get involved in. That is ethically within, outside of our scope. The gray zone. Now, this is obviously where it becomes very, very difficult and very tricky. What do we mean by the gray zone? Like I said, it's often that blurred space between mental distress and mental disorders. And I want to use the example of anxiety. Anxiety, which shows us how gray the zone can actually be. Now, we are, within our scope of practice, allowed to help clients manage anxiety, stress, and depression. For example, if we look at that graph, in the middle, managing anxiety is part of the scope. The green, to help clients to learn how to breathe, having grounding activities, mindfulness, yoga, etc., that falls within our scope, all right? So those are activities that can help clients to manage their anxiety. But of course, anxiety, number one, needs a diagnosis, which is outside of a scope of practice. Often, medication is involved in managing anxiety. That falls outside of our scope. So here we have this dilemma where anxiety is a clinical disorder, but yet wellness counselors have beautiful techniques, which is going to help clients to be able to manage their anxiety. Many clients, for example, don't want to go to or don't want to use medication. Yes, I see the ASHP hand up. Oh, sorry, I thought there was a hand up there from the ASHP. All good?
Josh, Dr. Liesel, did you have a question or comment for Alicia? We saw your hand pop up.
No, sorry, we had some technical difficulties. You guys can continue.
Okay.
Awesome, thanks. All right, guys, so that's an example of where the gray and the blurred lines start to happen. Here are two more examples. Number one, a client has an occasional panic attack, which is often linked to stress. It's gray because supportive stress management is within our scope. But if it starts to escalate into panic disorder, it once again moves to the top of the triangle and is then outside of our scope of practice. Another example, a client asks you if they should start or stop medication. Now, what might come into play here is your own preference, all right? Whether you are in favor of medication or aren't in favor of medication. It would be unethical to put your thoughts, opinions onto your client, all right? Guys, that's a no-no. We are not here to advise clients whether they should start or stop medication. It's a no-no. It's out of our scope of practice, all right? But what we can do is to explore the client's feelings with them about whether it is okay, how do they feel about medication, etc. Let them be able to use you as a soundboard, a safe space where they can explore what their feelings are around medication, their pros, their cons. But none of that should ever include our own personal judgments or feelings or opinions on medication. All right. So those are two more areas where it starts to become a little bit gray. Always refer your clients to a GP or psychologist, psychiatrist when there are questions around medication. The suicidal client. Now, guys, we often tell our students that do our course that this is something you have to prepare yourself for, all right? It's not, once again, like I said earlier, that you are going to take in clients that are depressed, but your client might be coming to see you for something completely different and then randomly discloses that they've got suicidal thoughts. What do we do? The reality is that it happens. Clients very seldom come in a neatly presented, labeled package, all right? We don't know what is going to happen in the sessions, so prepare yourself, okay? Ideation, it's still a little bit of a gray area because maybe your client is having these ideations because they are not able to manage their stress. So with stress techniques and coping mechanisms, we are able to sometimes help our clients in these scenarios. But if a client is telling you and disclosing in the room that they are actively suicidal, that they've got intent to harm themselves, it moves outside of your scope of practice, and then referral is crucial. All right, it becomes a medical situation. All right, so what do we do? Yeah, just some guidelines around best practice responses. Number one, of course, always stay calm. Listen empathetically. You're not going to immediately say to your client there and then, oh, no, sorry, you can't talk about suicide now. It's outside of my practice. Okay, I know none of you would do that, but I'm just using an example. You stay calm. You listen empathetically. What you are going to do is to assess risk in a very basic way. What are those things? You're going to ask about their thoughts. Many people are petrified to ask clients directly, are you feeling suicidal? Are you planning on harming yourself? There's these myths that are around that if you had to ask somebody whether they are suicidal, that you're going to start planting seeds in their head. You are not going to do that. If a client is feeling suicidal, the thoughts are there already, all right? Asking a client and letting them actually admit or sort of speak about it is a huge relief for clients. It means that somebody is actually seeing me, is actually hearing me, and that brings relief to them, right? So ask your client directly if you are suspecting that they are. That often clients hint to us. They say stuff, I don't know if I really want to be here, I've come to my end. Those are ways that we start to identify clients telling us in a subtle way actually what they are feeling. So ask them directly, all right? Ask them about whether they've got plans and whether they've made plans to do things. Do they have pills available to have? Have they bought equipment to carry out their attempt? And timing enough to determine immediate danger. Guys, this is crucial, all right? what you can do to help a client, besides, remember, it's always a referral. You can also suggest that the client has a no harm plan or a safety plan that they draw up with you. In that plan, the client tells you that they will have certain people that they are willing for you to contact, or that they are willing to contact should they feel that the suicide ideation starts to, become a little bit more intense. That's a very, very helpful way to help draw up that safety plan with your clients. And then, of course, you refer, you document everything, and most importantly, you make sure that you get supervision to make sure that you have covered everything that you need to do to make sure that you and your client is safe within this scenario. Suicidal clients, guys, if you thought you're never going to have them, at some point in your counseling career, it will happen. All right. And then, guys, just a final note on the boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are fences with gates. We know where our lines should be, and we know when to refer. When a person thinks of boundaries, you think of rules, it feels like you're trapped, it feels like you can't move in that space. That's not what boundaries are there for. Remember, they are there to protect. They should be transparent, so you can see through, that you can refer. That is a healthy system when we are working within that space and ethics. So thank you for that one. The next topic we're going to look at, the hot topic, is ethics for online counseling. And as I said, this is the aspect that I'm quite passionate about, that I'm currently doing my thesis. And I want to just introduce to you, these 5 pillars, the foundations of implementing digital mental health practices. Access, making sure there's access, engagement, privacy, integration, and effectiveness. Just because of time-wise, I'm going to just go through this quite quickly with you guys. Access. Make sure your client has access to the platform that you are using, all right? It doesn't help you are going to offer a very fancy platform to somebody that is maybe living in a rural area. Make sure that it is geographically and according to the economic status of the clients that you are offering. It must be accessible to everybody, all right? Engagement, the importance of user-friendly interfaces, clear communication, and maintaining a strong therapeutic alliance. A lot of times, we still to this day, a big part of my counseling practice is online, guys. And initially, there's, of course, the concerns of, will I be able to engage? Will I be able to build rapport online? And what we have found that within the first 5 minutes, people forget that they're online, all right? But that can only happen if you, as the counselor, are willing to really engage with your client. And it's little things, non-verbal language, in terms of how far and how close you are to engaging with your client. If you're talking like this, or if you're talking like this, hi, it's lovely to meet you. Welcome to our session, versus, hi, my name is Alicia. It's lovely to have you here. Do you see? It's our responsibility to set the tone with our clients in engaging them, building rapport. Privacy, guys, this is the bulk of my thesis at the moment, is how do we make sure that we are protecting our clients' information? Data security, confidentiality. Please, guys, little things like, don't ask your clients whether you can record the session because you rather want to record than make notes, because making notes takes time. Your clients will become very skeptical. They'll be worried, who's going to see this video? Are you going to share this video with my husband or with my wife? Recording things like that has its own ethics around it. Please, please, guys, don't put your clients in uncomfortable situations by asking them, is it okay if I record the session? Is it okay if I ask AI assist to take notes for us? Your clients are going to want those notes. And remember, note-taking is a very personal ethical aspect, which has its own stuff that we need to talk about. I'm not saying don't use AI to your benefit, but make sure you understand the ethics around it. All right. The next one, integration. This involves connecting digital therapy with other health and social cares. Now, of course, when we do online counseling, you are opening a much bigger scope of clients to you. Let's say, for example, I'm based in Johannesburg. I can now do online counseling with clients in Cape Town. But the ethical responsibility for me to do that is if I am seeing clients in Cape Town that needs an urgent referral, I need to be able to know where I'm going to refer them to. So therefore, we also have to make sure that we've got networks, that we are connected, that we know how and where we are going to refer in this online space. All right. And then the last one, effectiveness. Ensure that interventions are evidence-based and outcomes-driven. That's obviously for both face-to-face and online. But when we are doing online counseling, we have to understand that therapists also need to evaluate the impact of the counseling online. Ask your clients, ask them for feedback in terms of how did they find that? Is there something that you could do that makes it a little bit more comfortable for them? All right. Making sure that they are in a confidential space, that clients don't worry about either from your side that there are going to be people walking in and out of your room, or from their side that they are also making sure that they are in a very safe and confidential room when they are having their session. All right. So this is just a very, very tip of the iceberg around ethics around online counseling, but I wanted to bring that into our session today. Then this lovely one, confidentiality versus duty to protect. We need to make sure when and how we have to break that confidentiality. So the first thing we always suggest, guys, make sure your clients know before the time that, number one, there are certain things that you might have to disclose should that come up in the session. So, for example, with us in our counseling practice, we have it very clearly stated, number one, in the indemnity form, which the client signs before coming to the session. And then once again, in the beginning of each session, we once again explain to clients what confidentiality is and when it might be necessary for us to break that confidentiality. So what are the 4 areas? You might already be aware of this. What are the 4 areas that we break confidentiality? Number one, if a client discloses to us that they are at risk of harm to themselves or to others. Number 2, if they disclose to us that they have committed a serious crime, whether it was in the past or in the future. What do I mean by serious crime? They are planning to harm or murder somebody, kidnapping somebody. Now, I know that sounds quite extreme. Within this year, we actually had a client disclose that to us. So I'm putting it out there that it can happen. I'm not saying it does often, but we did have a scenario like this year. The third scenario where we would have to break confidentiality is if a client discloses abuse to minors or vulnerable adults. Who are vulnerable adults? Adults that are disabled or are elderly and cannot necessarily care for themselves. And then the 4th scenario is, of course, if you are subpoenaed to court and the court requires you to share certain information. On a side note around that, we at our practice make sure that we put it in the indemnity form that we do not counsel clients where there is court reports or present court appearances necessary. So the clients know before the time we do not do that. It's just a safer way because, guys, if you want to be pulled to shreds, agree to go to court. It's just not worth it. All right. And then, of course, where do we disclose? The first and the best option is always to the police. And then, of course, where there are children involved, you can also report to child protection agencies. So that's just a little bit of a nutshell around that ethical dilemma that often happens. The next one we're going to look at is conflictual and dual relationships. So when relationship boundaries are blurred. Now, guys, remember what I said earlier on, ethical requirements is not legal, all right? So these are guidelines. And in most of these, you will see that there would be an exception somewhere along the line where we would perhaps be able to cross that boundary, all right? So first of all, guys, it is unethical to counsel a family member or a friend of yours for the obvious reasons why we are too personally involved and our own personal biases is going to come into play. Don't do that to your client. Don't do it to yourself. Number 2, counseling current clients' family members. Now, why that's a little bit of a blurred boundary, and of course, we have to always consider clients' autonomy if that is what they are preferring and they want you to see you. You, as a counselor, have to be ethical in being able to understand whether you can manage that boundary, whether you can keep things separately. The safer option is to perhaps refer that client to somebody else. But if you can't, you have to be very, very careful that you don't blur the confidentiality that this client is sharing and you don't share it with the other client. All right. Counseling a colleague or a family member of a colleague, once again, just like the first one, you don't want to blur that. Your own personal opinions might play a role there. And this is the one where boundaries are very, very blurred, because counseling an individual partner within offering couples counseling, if you are offering couples counseling, they make it very, very clear that if you're going to be seeing any of them for an individual session, that you do not hold secrets. For example, one of the couples disclosed to you in an individual session that they are having an affair and they don't want you to share it within the couples counseling. That creates an ethical dilemma, which can be very, very difficult to manage. So again, guys, the golden rule, if you ever find yourselves in situations like that, make sure you get strong supervision, a support that can guide you around that. But also within your first couples counseling, make it very clear to your clients that you do not hold secrets. So they have to be able to understand that it's a very transparent space for that. Social media, accepting friend requests from your clients. Guys, boundaries here. We suggest you keep it within your own boundary. Keep your personal life separate. It's just the professional thing to do. So don't put yourself in those circumstances. And then, of course, don't mess business with pleasure. For example, business and financial ties, renting property to a client, selling products to a client, entering a business deal, etc., etc. And again, I'm putting it out there. The client's autonomy is also an ethical requirement. We have to respect the client's wishes, but also keep in mind that the boundaries to keep yourself safe is also very important. And then the question, the golden question to ask yourself is, who benefits most from the arrangement that you're making? And if it's you, it's possibly leaning towards more of an unethical side. If your client is benefiting, it's possibly the more safer option to go through. All right. Golden rule, when in doubt, always ask your supervisor. And then the last point I want to talk about is to make sure that ethics towards other colleagues and professionals are always considered. Guys, within mental health, within working in this scope, we are a network of professions. Even though you guys would have seen, Keshni and I were having a chat about this the other day, that there is a lot that gets said on social media around the scope of a counsellor, the scope of the ASCHP, the scope of the HPCSA. Guys, if you are going to comment on social media and you are going to challenge and take on the challenge that is around the scope of practice, always do it in a kind and respectful way. I always say there is enough work out there for all of us. We live in a traumatized society, guys. There is enough work for everybody. It's not a competition about who can get what client. If you remain in our scope of practice, you will be able to refer to psychiatrists. Psychiatrists will refer to you. Psychologists will refer to you. We will refer to psychologists. That is how a healthy network of ethics needs to look like. Please, guys, every time we put ourselves out on social media and we go into a war zone where we start fighting and disrespecting other professions, we make ourselves and the ASCHP and our profession look bad. So always do it in a kind and respectful manner. Oh, yes, this is the last one. Like I said, we did touch on this already. Nola Tandu did this, but just some guidelines. The ASCHP guidelines between 200 and 600 Rand per hour. Now, that's quite a broad scope. So how do we determine what it is that fits in for us? Number one, look at the sliding scale. Consider the number of years experience you have. Obviously, the more years experience you have, the more your fees can be adjusted higher. Look at additional trainings and qualifications you have. That will also play a factor or a role in what you can charge. Geographics and target group, guys, like I said, look at who your target group is and adjust your fees for that. Discounted rates, we looked at the pros and cons of that, but of course there are certain places and people that do qualify for potential discounts like students, pensioners, or unemployed clients. And then, of course, within couple sessions, we also charge a little bit more. And I know Keshni mentioned earlier on, you may even have different rates for online counseling versus face-to-face. And then I would just like to end with this quote, that your power is not in doing more, but rather in doing what is right. Thank you very much. That is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Alicia. You made ethics fun. I think that was the objective. So we appreciate all the feedback, the DSM knowledge, the walking and towing the line, all very, very, very interesting. And I'm sure that we might have maybe time for one question. I'm not sure, Josh, if we can squeeze in maybe one question. Elise, would you like to ask that single question? You might just want to unmute yourself. Elise? I'm not sure if we're going to get Elise's question. Josh?
Keshni, I don't know
Liesel.
if it's a technical problem on Elisa's side, but I was just thinking to mention one important thing
Yes.
with referral. And Alicia, thank you very much on that insightful presentation. When it comes to referral, you did mention psychiatrists and psychologists, and yes, you also mentioned the GP. And the GP would probably be the best first option, because if there is a further referral, that the medical aids, those who have medical aids, it will be then covered if a GP refers them to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. We did have one incident, Keshni, as you will remember, where our counsellor did the very, very correct thing to refer, but actually the client was admitted, but then the medical aid refused payment because the referral didn't come from a medical doctor. So just keep that point in mind.
Thank you. And that's so valuable, right? Because we work within systems. So just like understanding the DSM, and Alicia, as a social worker, you're such a great, source of information for this as well, because the systemic guidelines also govern how and when. So Dr. Liesel is absolutely 100% right, of course, that we need to follow the protocol involved. And so if a psychiatrist is going to be referring, or you're going to be referring, your first line when you refer should be to offer the GP. Okay. I don't know if we're going to get another question, Alicia, but I think we'll take the questions as they come. And again, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are moving into our final session, and time does really fly when you're having fun. This one is of particular importance, no matter where you are in your career, in your counseling career. It's lived experience of supervision as a growth tool and beyond compliance to professional flourishing. We are joined by Lizanne Chittenden, but I am going to do, before I hand over to you, an introduction. And once again, I'm going to read this. Very impressive again. Lizanne is a supportive counselor, creative strategist, and founder of Wired Creative Wellness Studio. With over 2 decades of experience spanning corporate training, project management, emotional development, and support, she brings a multidisciplinary lens to the wellness space. She is currently completing her Master of Social Work in Wellness, Healthcare, and Counseling, and is passionate about integrating creativity, ethics, and emotional resilience into the heart of professional practice. Her work challenges conventional models and opens up space for innovation, growth, and deeper connection, both within individuals and the systems they serve. Known for her grounded presence, practical insight, and experiential facilitation style, Lizanne creates spaces where healing is not only possible, but is also practical. Her approach integrates expressive arts, play-led interventions, and wellness counseling to support individuals and teams navigating stress, transitions, and identity formation. She has led numerous national learning and development projects, designed experiential workshops for both corporate and community settings, and continues to advocate for innovative, ethical, and heart-led approaches to wellness. Wow. Thank you for joining us, Lizanne. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kish. It is absolutely amazing privilege to be here. It's afternoon already. As Kish said, how awesome it is when we're having fun. And it was absolutely, have you guys enjoyed this as much as I did? I tell you, I was glued to every single one of these presentations today, and so much learning has taken place for me. So once again, thank you for the opportunity, and I would like to explore the topic this afternoon of supervision. And this topic sits right at the heart of what we do as counselors. And I know the word can bring up a few mixed feelings for us. And for some of us, it may feel like we're busy with a little bit of a tick box, a requirement for part of your registration and your designation. And for others, it could be like a lifetime of growth and support that keeps us steady. But today I want to look at mostly at supervision, and I want to look at it a bit differently. Not as an obligation, but as something that holds real power for growth for us as counselors. And before we call it anything fancy, before we name it as a connection or a reflection, I want to ask, what is supervision really? And it starts here for me. So supervision at its core is experience, is a structured, supportive relationship where more experienced practitioner or counselor provides guidance for us. It assists with accountability and encouragement to another counselor. Because can I be honest, this space can sometimes be very lonely, can sometimes be very daunting. And it's there to make sure our practice stays ethical and effective. And we have heard the words ethical quite a bit during several presentations earlier today. But it's also there to promote our personal and professional growth and to safeguard the well-being of both us as counselors and our clients. Now, when you think of supervision, what is the first word that comes to your mind? Is it either accountability or is it growth? Is it a slight bit of policing, or is it there like writing a test and then making sure that we do everything correct? Or can we reframe it a slight bit to be seen as growth? So we can often associate it with compliance, the ticking boxes. Okay, let me just do this. Or being checked on, okay, where are they going to find fault again this time? Or providing that we do things right. But as I said, I love the word reframing because reframing gives me a different angle on things. You know, I always explain to my clients when we start talking about reframing, you can take the same painting, the same picture, but when you put a different frame around it, it looks different. When you change it, you renew it. So how can we renew our vision, our outlook on supervision? And when we would use it well, it strengthens our personal capacity. It brings clarity. It brings alignment. I mean, we've spent so much time, and being able to be part of the ASCHP has been phenomenal for me to see the growth that is even happening in this body where we're registered, to cause a fewer disconnects, not just to our work, but within myself as a counselor, because I'm not distant from my practice as a counselor. I am the counselor. I'm part of it. So now that we've explored all the different angles here of what supervision is, oh my word, it looks like we've lost signal. Do you sometimes feel like that, sitting in a counseling room in the middle of a session and you feel like you've lost signal? You suddenly freezes. Your client Have you seen when we're online, everything goes like, and that. You try refreshing, you try clicking, you like, what do I do now? What avenue do I take? What is happening here? And you feel you just want to restart, but nothing seems to reconnect. And that's actually what happens when sometimes in our counseling journey, we start off so strong, so inspired, so connected, so clear. And then somewhere along the line, beep, the signal just weakens. We lose a bit of clarity. We start like buffering. And that is when we start feeling emotionally overloaded. It's not because we're not good counselors, but because we are human. And even with the best systems, we need sometimes have a reboot. And that is where supervision is such a powerful tool for us. It is a process that helps us to pause, refresh, and connect. Because when your phone is sometimes going slow, what do? We restart it. When your computer, you have so many tabs open, what do? We restart. So let's talk what happens when that signal drops and how supervision helps us to get back. And who of you can remember this? I'm probably giving away my age here. But who of you have experienced this, where we still remember a bit of trauma related to this? Guys, do you remember that? And that endless screeching of that noise, and we so desperately hope for us to connect. And when you're right at the end, it just kicks you off. And sometimes it feels like that when we're working without supervision. We try to connect, but it's slow, it's fuzzy, and everything feels harder than it should. We keep feeling, I'm so frustrated here. We keep on refreshing, we keep on restarting, and we're pushing through. But deep down, we know that something is out of sync. And that's exactly what supervision comes in as a powerful tool, because it helps us to notice when our professional signal is a slight bit weak. And it gives us a tool on how to manage through it. So what do we do when our system goes a bit slow? Do you know this? Control, Alt, Delete. Who of you have pressed Control, Alt, Delete me numerous times? Because then the task manager comes up and the task manager shows you where everything is lacking. And when we hit the Control, Alt, Delete, usually when everything has started freezing. Or when we just had enough, or our system just don't want to respond. Well, sometimes in our work as counselors, and I can say here for myself, sometimes I have tried to Control or delete in a session. Just wanted to close my eyes. And this ethical, most probably where I get feeling stuck, or this point where I feel I can't do this anymore. And that is when supervision has played a pivotal role in my career. And it became essential for me. It is where that reboot that keeps me from shutting down. Without supervision, our growth starts to slow down and we start buffering. And we get stuck in that moment of self-doubt. Even a bit of the imposter syndrome creeps in. Those moments when you want to walk out of a session and think, I added no value. Did this even help my client? Maybe I'm not good enough for this. And supervision is here where it helps me to push through that freeze moment. It is where I click that moment where it says, do you want to upgrade? Do you want to upgrade from a 2G to a 5G? A bit more clearer, a bit more reliable. So that clip I played to you was not a 2G clip. That was a Telkom telephone line. So when you guys remembered when you were on the telephone line that you could not receive any calls. So it was very limited. And we plug into supervision We reconnect to clarity, to confidence, and to support. And we stop buffering and we start flowing again. And I want you to take a second here where you think, in which area in your professional practice right now do you need a slightly stronger signal? Could it be self-care, your self-confidence, your boundaries, or just reflection? Whether it is what you need, where you can identify, this is the area where supervision can help me grow now. So let's to be honest, growth isn't always neat and inspiring. I don't know about you, but growth for me, I need to really push myself. So even when we know what to do, growth can also be a challenge for us. Then there are days when we feel slow or heavy or frustrated. And that's when we want to press that control or delete moments. And the ones where everything in us want to restart or just escape. I love escape button, but just to shut down for a moment. And that's exactly where the next part of my presentation comes in. Where and when can supervision becomes the rebooting tool that's helping us to move forward again? And it started, I started to think in the counseling space, maybe we need a different shortcut than Control Alt Delete. One that doesn't shut down the system, but actually helps us to reboot and to grow. And this is where I love this comes in. Instead of Control Alt Delete, I wanted to Control Alt and grow. And let's unpack this. Control is the one place where we're taking charge of the space. We're taking charge of our time and our energy. It's that moment where you check your system and say, what is draining me? What is out of balance? And what can I change? And supervision is here to help us do it. It brings us back to what keeps us grounded. Our ethics, our boundaries, and our values. Go revisit the why you are in a counseling position. And then I want to move on to alt. This is the one all about the alternatives. So I love doing things differently. And I want to challenge you to look at things differently. Challenge yourself as you start building your new plan for 2026 in your practice. What are you going to do differently next year than this year? How much growth are you going to incorporate? And how are you going to get there? You know, those times when you feel that I feel I could have done so much better when you're replaying your session. And that's why it's important taking notes to revisit those times when you feel, oh, maybe I should have. And you know what? This is where I unpack it with my supervisor to give me a slight bit of a new perspective. And sometimes the question your supervisor asks, or just the space to breathe, and then something clicks and you realize there may be a different way. And this is where I love, this is my favorite one is the grow part, because we never should be stopping ourselves in an area of growth. Never get to a point where you feel, oh, I know it all. Because this is what happens instead of delete, is grow. Grow is that gentle reminder that even in the tough times, I can still do it. Something inside of me is still learning. I'm still stretching, still becoming stronger. And supervision is that key that I need to use to unlock my vault to what is inside of me. It helps me to see what's running in the backside, that task manager I mentioned earlier, what is slowing me down, and what needs to be closed. Maybe just a few documents need to be closed. It frees up the bandwidth for what really matters, my growth, for my clients, and for my purpose. So instead of pressing the delete when it gets hard, I want to press the grow button. Because growth doesn't mean I've got it all figured out. As counselors, we hardly ever have it all figured out. It means that I'm staying connected. I'm staying connected to myself. I'm staying connected to my work and to the reason we started doing this, navigating this space in counseling in the first place. And now I want you to go back and think, what difference would it make if you had the space of supervision to reframe that moment, that assist you into that moment of grace and more especially growth? And I've identified here a model. So I love building models and things because I need it practical. I want to understand, give me the tool, how to implement this. So let's talk about supervision and how it can actually help me grow. So there's just not one way to do it. There are quite a different few models to supervision and to the approaches. And I'm going to break it down for you here. And think of them in the line that we're talking about connections and Wi-Fi. They are like different Wi-Fi routers. They all connect us, but each one has a different frequency. And the first one I want to have a look at is the developmental model. And this one is the stages of growth. And I'm going to unpack each and every one for you now. And then we're going to have a look at the reflective model. This one is your safe space where you go and explore. And then the integrative one, this is the one where you get one that works for you. Because as a counselor, we are all different. We all have different clients. We all have different views on how to do things. And all our approaches are really different. So you need to find a supervisor that fits you. So the first one is the developmental model. And this one is the stages of growth, as I mentioned. So just like counselors move from a student to a lay, to a supportive, then to holistic, so you will grow. Because the more experience you go and the more you evolve as a counselor, that is important for you. In every stage, you may need a different supervisor to help you and to guide you, because initially you will need more support. You will need more guidance. And this is where it's important for you to get somebody to help you build up your confidence, to allow you structure. And as we gain experience, supervision becomes more collaborative. And that is about the fine-tuning and reflection. And it matures in stages. And it's more about partnership and mentorship, staying accountable, staying curious, and open to new learning. And this model reminds us that growth is a process. And remember, always trust your process. And supervision meets us exactly where we are. And this will help us into the next level. And now I want us to have a look at the reflective model. And the reflective model is where supervision becomes a safe and a space for exploring. And this is an exciting one because we're not just ticking boxes or being evaluated. It is about slowing down, noticing, and taking in for a moment what is happening inside of me as a practitioner or as a counselor. And this model helps us to explore our reactions, our emotions, and guys, this is a crucial one, even our triggers, without judgment towards ourselves. It is a mirror that helps us to see what we might miss in the busyness of our everyday work. And the reflection supervisor would ask you this: what did this session bring up for me? What can I learn from this? And this is a space to be human, not to be perfect, and to grow through insight, not through pressure. And the last one of the three models is the integrative model. And this is your Taylor approach. This is where this model is flexible and it helps you adapt to your needs, your personality, and the context you work in. And it blends elements from other models, structured when you need more guidance, reflection when you need a bit more insight, and flexibility when you grow into your own style. Because if you have to go, if I just look at myself, the counselor I was when I started off and the counselor I'm now are two completely different counselors. So my offering would change, but my need would also change. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. And supervision should grow with you. It should align with your values and your rhythm and your practical goals. Because as I said, how will your goals differ from this year to next year? And how do you elevate yourself from the counselor I'm now to, and that's if I can refer back to Keshni's session, how your offering will differ. This is growth. And so we're developing through reflecting and integration. Each of these models strengthen our professional signal in such a different way. And together, and guys, this is crucial. Together we stay connected, we are supported, and we continuously evolving as counselors. Just look at this amazing webinar and how much learning has taken place today. So imagine this on how, if you can do this on a continual basis, on how to strengthen yourself. So if supervision is the Wi-Fi connection, and all these models are different routers that keeps us connected, and I hope you follow me here, then these are the three main signal boosters that supervision strengthen in every counselor. So, and I call them growth pillars, and they hold up every part of our professional journey. So the first one we're going to look at is competence. This is about sharpening your professional skills and staying ethically grounded. And through the supervision process, it helps us to practice fresh, informed, and in line with the best practice. And this is where regular system updates come, check-ins that make us sure that we're still running smoothly and effectively, not just for our clients, but for ourselves as well. And the second pillar we're going to look at is personal growth. And this is the part that's about you as a counselor and you as a person. And supervision gives us the space to process, to breathe, and to check our own well-being. Because if you are not well, your work can't be well either. And this pillar is about emotional health, resilience, and self-awareness. And this is where we charge our internal battery. Guys, and as counselors, we need to practice what we preach. No good you sit there and tell your clients self-care, but self-care is not a priority for us. And the last one is professional identity. And this is my favorite one. And this is where it helps me to stay connected to my why. It is in the purpose, who we are, what we value, and how do we show up to work. And it reminds us that being a counselor is just not what we do. It's who we are becoming. And when these three pillars, competence growth, personal growth, and professional identity are strong signals to stay stable, supervision gives the balance. So we don't tilt into one direction more than the other one. And now I want to have you look at what is our control panel looks like. So once we've managed what drains us, we're ready for the move. And now I'm going to give you practical tools. How do I get myself to stay okay every day? And these are the professional, these keep us running safely, smoothly. And the first one is through reflective journaling. Target your growth time. I like to call this growth time. Target growth time, as I said, because that is the quiet moment when you pause after a session. You jot down your thoughts and you notice patterns. It's not about writing perfect notes and making all the big ones, but it's about slowing down enough to catch what supervision will later help you unpack. Sometimes our biggest insights come from when we put it on paper. And the next one is case discussion. It's a debug mode. And you bring a case to supervision and say, something is glitching here. I can't quite see it. And this is important where we don't judge, but we're there to figure out what's working and what needs a little bit of our coding clean up. It's about curiosity, not correction. The next one is our feedback loops, our patch notes. When we have feedback loops, we get feedback from our supervisor. It's not criticism, it's collaboration. And those little tweaks, it's a small little tweak, just a question that you will go reflect on that helps us. Then we can do role play simulation. It's a test run. Creative reflection, it's installing a new app. Sometimes we need a bit of a refreshing. We need something new, a new drawing, a new storytelling, movement, a new method. Educate and get yourself trained in those areas. Then we have wellness check-ins. That is your battery life indicator. It's about you. This is not about your client. How are you doing? Are you running low? What are you doing to recharge? And then we get to the upgrade path, commitment to continuous learning. This is your CPDs. Commit to that. And so these are the ones. What is your goals? I love goals because goals give me vision. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the culture of growth. So we looked at the tools. We looked at best practices. And now I want to say, how do I get it into my culture from a weak signal? Let's start from weak signal to full bars. A weak signal means that you're working too hard. You're not fully connected, but you're functioning. You're functioning, but you're not doing it at your full strength. And a growth culture is where we stay connected, not just to be supervised, but to have that feeling and that moment of community. And then we move from obligation to investment. I'm doing this for myself. I'm investing this as my future. And supervision is no longer something that we have to do, but it's something that I really enjoy doing. And this is where we press upgrade. I need to upgrade. Okay. And then we're going to just quickly have, now that we've built a strong signal, how do I prepare for my supervision? I come prepared. I have done my reflection beforehand. What is it I'm feeling? Share. I share what is on my mind. I share what I'm experiencing. And then the last one we're going to look at is growth. Apply and reflect. If it's not working for you, divert. Get something else. And then we have supervision in action. And as I say, when you feel like shutting down, choose growth. Your supervision is your upgrade, not your delete button. Guys, I want to say my lived experience with supervision has escalated my growth to a level where I can't even share with you. I meet with my supervisor almost once a week just to keep intact, just to make sure that I will be the very best counselor that I can ever be, not just for my clients, but for myself as well. And as we close today, I want to leave you with this one thought. Supervision turns breakdowns into breakthroughs. It is those moments where we feel so stuck and tired and unsure that supervision becomes the bridge that carries us over to clarity. It is not about what you're doing wrong, but it's what are you ready to grow into. So do not press Control Alt Delete. Press Control Alt Grow. And so when you feel overwhelmed and your system freezes, when you catch yourself reaching for that Control Alt Delete, do it. Press Grow. Press Grow. Because supervision is just not about accountability. It is us becoming. It is about we rewire, reconnect, and remind ourselves that every glitch is just a doorway to growth. So if I can encourage you today, stay connected, keep growing. Do not press delete, control, control, alt, delete on yourself. Please, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people that you're destined to help. And guys, the reward is absolutely amazing. Go revisit the why. And I want to thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for showing up for others. Thank you for showing up for those clients, even when it's so hard, and for choosing to grow through supervision. Control, Alt, Grow. And I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the ASCHP for this opportunity to share this space. And may we choose to grow in our work, our supervision, and ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lizanne. Very, very, very interesting. And I love your analogies. What stood out for me was that control panel. I was like, yay, that's, the framework is wonderful. And I think everyone can resonate with that low battery image that you had in that corner there. Growth culture as a counselor. And I think the biggest takeaway here is the mindset change from obligation to investment. It is so powerful. So thank you again for your wisdom and your lived experience, and then also just clarifying. We do have time for some questions. So I'm looking to see if there are any questions available. Oh, sorry. If there are any questions that anyone wants to ask? Perhaps we can oh, there we go. Freddie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you for an awesome day. This is really so helpful. Quick question. How do you recommend we find a supervisor? Where do we find one?
Good. Thank you, Kesh. I'm going to throw that one to you as director of the ASCHP.
And I am going to invite Dr. Liesel to also come in, to also come into the conversation. Dr. Liesel, do you want to lean into Freddie's question?
Oh, my goodness. There we go. Yes, thank you for the question. It's a very loaded question, and we actually have a wonderful answer to your question, and that will bring hope and joy, I believe, to all the members. And yes, we've been in planning for a long time now, and we are almost ready to make a big announcement. And so I am careful to not give away at this stage so much information. But Keshni, please just let out a little bit of the wonderful news to our members, please.
That's the green light.
The Liesel. Yeah, so I always do that because we just don't want to create expectation for all of you. We want to be open and transparent. But this is a question that has been coming up a lot. And if in doubt, I always say, if in doubt, if you want to clarify, if you want to find out if the person who wants to offer you supervision is in good standing, or if you're looking for some names for this year that you think would be helpful for your journey, Freddie, then just make contact with the office, okay? And they would be able to guide you appropriately. However, we do have some great news coming in terms of a policy and in terms of an application process and all of that. Once we are ready with it 100% with the process, we will then announce it via a circular so that everyone is going to receive the same information at the same time, because we understand completely how important this is in the process of counseling, and we don't take it lightly. So we want to take our time with this in order for us to be able to announce it. We've had lots of changes happen recently, and so we also want to make sure that it's bite-sized information and that everyone is ready to receive it at the right time. I hope I've done that justice, Dr. Liesel. Freddie, I hope I've answered your question in some way and form. If in doubt, connect with the office though.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I think we have time for one more question. Clarissa, your hand is up.
Hi there. I just wanted to find out, I've just recently registered as or been designated a wellness counselor. So would it be best to start out having a supervisor or later on? Because I do want to start my practice. I'm just finishing my honors degree, actually doing my last portfolio on Monday. And then after, I would like to start my own practice.
Good. Thank you, Kesh. Can I do this one?
Sure.
Clarissa, congratulations, and such an exciting time for you ahead. I would recommend that you get a supervisor ASCHP. As I said, supervision as an integral part of growing. And as I said, a supervisor, my lived experience gave me a lot of insight initially when I started, because I found initially after every client, I wanted to talk to my supervisor, because every day and every time it posted a new question for me. So that's where it gave me great comfort. If I can use this, a supervisor is like holding your hand when you start learning to walk, or somebody being there when you start riding your bicycle. You tend to fall a bit more over. And a supervisor for me was giving me the confidence and cheering me on to say, you know, even when it's hard, you can do it. And giving me that assurance within myself to say, you know, I am worthy. The imposter syndrome can come and go, but I can do this. I am well equipped and I am good enough to charge a fee. I am good enough to be paid for this. So I hope it answers it for you, Clarissa.
Yes, thanks so much.
Thank you, Clarissa. Okay, I see Fatima's hands up. She is here. Shall we do one more, Lizanne?
Yes,
and
you're
then
welcome.
back over to Dr. Liesel. Fatima, you just want to unmute yourself. I'm not sure if we're going to get Fatima Lizanne, but if
Okay.
you guys have a question, what we will do is we will get the question and then we will pass it on to you so that you can also answer it. Okay. Thank you again for your time and your passion and your lived experience. It is very valuable.
Thank you, Kish.
You're so welcome. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Liesel, who is going to take us into the end of the session. Dr. Liesel?
Thank you, Keshni. Yes, I can't believe it is the end. I feel almost saddened. And so, yeah, as we conclude today's webinar, I really wish to extend a sincere and heartfelt thank you to each one of you for your time and your participation, your engagement throughout the session. It was really wonderful for me to witness this. Your presence has made this gathering both meaningful and enriching. To our presenters, I'm expressing my deepest gratitude for the knowledge, your insight, and experience you have shared. Your contributions have truly inspired and equipped us with valuable tools to strengthen our professional practice. To all the counsellors who attended, thank you for investing your time in professional growth and for your ongoing commitment to excellence in your work. We trust that today's discussions have really offered you new perspectives and practical approaches that you can take back to your counselling rooms and communities. As we move forward together in a new era of growth and challenge, may the lessons learned today continue to guide, empower, inspire you in your journey and of service and care. So thank you. It's really amazing. And yes, we are racing towards the end of the year. And I hope that this will give you strength to continue and to still serve until you will all get your chance to rest. So thank you for everyone's participation again. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liesel, for your continued guidance. And to everyone there, we hear you, we see you, we believe you, and we thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.